good evening. Hope everyone's having a good night. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. We're talking about all kinds of interesting stuff. Something popped in the news today related to the Pope, and I thought it was a very appropriate time to have a conversation about the Trinity from the perspective of maybe that in-the-middle view. People throwing around words like Gnosticism, throwing around words like they know what they mean. Bundling things together, mashing stuff around. And you know what? There's use in doing that. Let's not deny that there's value in sort of playing with these symbols in our minds and as a philosophical exercise. But it's also important to understand where these symbols come from and what they mean from the respect of the author so that we can get a full grasp on at least what they meant to say. So that when we insert our own opinion, we can at least be informed to what their intent was. So we're not just assuming their argument for them, right? That's really dangerous, and it's frankly unfair. And also, it limits us in our own understanding. And so it's, incumbent upon us, if we want to be at least seekers of truth, that we are open to that process. And if we find ourselves in the unique position of having an audience and the desire to share what we believe to be true, that we have some level of integrity to what that is, right? And that we don't just wind up being, another tool for misinformation, another tool for division, confusion. We're all in this together, man. Chances are, if we actually looked at what we all believe, it's a lot closer than you think, right? It's a lot closer to all agreeing than all disagreeing. There's some obvious exceptions, but as a general rule, it's all speaking the same truth. And we're going to talk about a little bit of the machinations of the Trinity, talk about what this whole, especially in occult communities, people like to throw around the Council at Nicaea. They throw that word around like that is some spooky thing, and the Council, it almost seems like there's a big order of sages meeting secretly to discuss the machinations of the past, present, and future from the Cabal. No, of course not. All it really is a big annual meeting, right? The Methodists do it every year, right? The Catholics do it. I mean, everyone has their annual meetings. Back in the day, they had their annual meetings, and it's basically where they agree upon doctrine. They kind of sit down and say, listen, man, we can't all be out there speaking our own little interpretation of this if we're going to try to make a solid body of a religion, a solid body of an institution. So we need to we need to get our message straight. And so oftentimes the names of these councils are simply the area where they took place, right? Like the Geneva Convention. We call it that because it took place in Geneva, Switzerland, right? So the idea here is that the Council at Nicaea, or the Nicene Council, or the Nicene Creed, or all this nonsense refers to a period of time, but more appropriately a place, more appropriately the agreeing upon a specific doctrine that was to be the foundations moving forward, there's a lot of complexity there, and there's a lot of good scholarly work on the internet. There's a lot of good scholarly work in books, a lot of good scholarly work at your church level, where you can kind of look at what occurred from there, the idea of the schism and what that really means with respect to the Protestant movement compared to the Catholic movement and so on. And then you can it's really hard sometimes at the same time to make sense or trust some of these sources. Like, God bless if you decide to search the word Gnosticism. You hear it a lot in the news now, especially as like an anti sort of religious right enemy. and it gets bundled with a lot of other things, which are, it's not appropriate to do that, you know. Frankly, Catholicism and Gnosticism are two sides of the same coin, and a lot of the things that are potentially anti-Christian would also be anti-Gnostic. They're not enemies as much as they are enemies of each other, but also enemies of everyone. It's God bless. And why? Because, you know, frankly, if Catholicism taught the actual doctrine that Christ taught the disciples, it would have nothing to do with any of these conversations we're having. And the same thing goes for Gnosticism. If you understood the symbols behind the names, like Sophia, or the names behind the Demiurge, or the names behind the Holy Spirit, we're going to actually dig into Scripture tonight, because it's, you know, we don't just want to talk. Let's take a look at what was written. Let's take a look at trying to parse what they meant. I'm going to go to a couple of different sources so we can kind of parse a few different translations and get a sense of what's taking place in the news right now with respect to the Pope, and what does he mean? The news loves throwing around words that they think look interesting and sound interesting, and no one really understands, and so... Filioque. How beautiful. It just rolls off the tongue. It's like, Filioque. Ooh, the Pope. What do you mean he didn't honor the Filioque? This is a very specific doctrinal machination that he's essentially trying to say has outlived its usefulness. And others say, oh, but this is the foundation of the entire thing, that you can't change. And what are we talking about here? I'm going to light some incense, pardon the noise. If we're going to pamper ourselves, we also have to pamper the nose. This is beautiful. It's a prayer in a box, experienced by our nose and our mind. Love this stuff. Oh, and it's a fresh box too. I love it. Remember these? Any Gen Xers out there remember their nog? There was a period of time where this was introduced to a certain subculture. Back in the day, the smell. And so this all this hoopla, all this nonsense that we're going to start to hear emerge over the next several days over this statement that the Pope made with respect to the Holy Spirit, and whether she comes from the Father or she comes from the Father and the Son. Well, what if I told you that the Father comes from the Spirit? What if I told you she was first? Huh. Oh, well, that's just ramble-rousing bullshit by somebody who is clearly ignorant to the doctrine and doesn't really have an understanding of what that's just a ridiculous kind of, like, you're just throwing words out there. Oh yeah, how cute, how woke, how whatever you want to call it. Is it? There's one particular doctrine I talk about a lot on here. Careful, we're getting into the realm of shenanigans. And that doctrine is this idea of the descent and how and when it occurred, and this sort of separation that took place at some point. And, you know, I use metaphorically a language of like speaking and listening to discuss the machinations of that, to discuss the idea of something like a universal intelligence becoming aware of itself. You know, what it means to speak the world into existence. Right. We always talk about Bereshit. Oh, in the beginning God said. Well, no, that's not 100% accurate. It's more like, you know, while God started, he said a thing. Like he was already, right? There's an here's the point of that. There's an implication of it already having occurred, like it was already in progress. It's like Finnegan's Wake. It starts in the middle of a sentence, right? And what this is implying is that the creation of the universe is the word being spoken. He didn't speak the universe into existence. He's speaking it into existence right now. It's an ongoing process that we're in the unique position in the middle of being in a sort of linear arrow pointed forward time-space perspective, able to see it unfolding, right? How beautiful is that? But there's this idea of the universe being spoken into existence, right? The Big Bang being that moment where the word was said. Well, no, that was when the word started being said, quote unquote. And again, that's just symbolic language. What I'm trying to imply is that the word is still being spoken. And all of creation is essentially that. But now, why would God speak? Was he ignorant to the fact that he was the only thing in the universe before creation? Or was he speaking to somebody else? Now, that's a very interesting question. And now that doesn't imply that there was another, or it doesn't imply that there was any kind of agenda. A sound happened. The why? Let's not pretend we can get into the mind of God. But something occurred in that darkness, and he saw himself, herself, actually. Because in that darkness, suddenly there was a light visible, and this self-awareness occurred. There was this moment of seeing the self. Another way of saying that is hearing something in the distance. And there was this implication, therefore, that someone else had spoken. That's where the separation took place. The moment that self-awareness happened, there was this sort of almost, dare I say, mistake. That sound occurred outside of the self. And so there was the presence of another. And so we have then this idea of a speaker, a listener, and then the thing being spoken. Right? The original thought entered a mind. And so you have the thought and the mind. But there's always this sort of middle idea. The source of the thought, the speaker, the will that drove the necessity to speak, so the necessity to develop a language and to create a word that identifies the thing attempting to be communicated in some way. Some way to transfer this emotion of knowledge of the self, whatever that means. And we're going to discuss that at length, over and over. Because why not? And so, we're talking about, for instance, the tarot and the Trinity, Pope Leo, the Filioque, all these things. And so let's just be clear about that and what we're talking about here. There's this idea that took place and was agreed upon that the source of the Holy Spirit, the responsible party. So let's be honest. The implication is the authority is the Father and the Son, right? Filioque is a term that refers to and the Son. Not just Dad. He had to be there too, and they equally have authority over this new thing that they created, right? That's the thing that they were agreeing upon. And now what occurred is that Pope Leo said, nah, well, it's been such a controversy for a very long time, and it's not really very useful any longer, and I think that we just do away with that. And of course, that's going to cause a little bit of a stir because it has some implications, potentially, with respect to authority. It has some implications with respect to who gets to say that their side is the boss. Don't be taking away authority from the Father, especially with this decidedly feminine energy of the Holy Spirit. We can't be having that. Well, don't forget that light emerged somewhere. And what did it emerge in? It emerged in a sort of an everywhere but nowhere, all encompassing, but sort of like etherical quality. What is the word, right? Like an airy quality, like a mind, not a body, not a, it's hard to describe. It's very similar to, like, for instance, maybe what the Holy Spirit kind of feels like when you try to get into what it is this thing is that Jesus talked about, that emerged from the Father. Because that's really the answer right there. It came right from the words of Jesus himself, that it emerged from the Father. And we're going to get there. There's several translations we're going to look at tonight to verify that. My own, which isn't the best translation, it's probably one of the more mainstream and not necessarily so accurate, New King James. There's still some good stuff. It's very thought-provoking, and it serves its purpose with respect to kind of my own daily curiosity. And it leads me to other translations, and I'm able to go to various places once I get a question or an idea that I want to look into, based on what I've read in the New King James. This was a gift, and so it does also, I have to admit, it has kind of like a personal, sensation because of that. But at the same time, it's a study Bible, so it's got some good stuff on the bottom that can lead you in directions. It shows, obviously in the margins you can see some other references in other parts of the book, so maybe you can get a sense of how that language may have been changed or interpreted over time, and have a good middle approach to the understanding. But nonetheless, we're going to look at where Jesus actually says the words when he's talking to normal people, right? Not God. He's talking to us about this Holy Spirit and what's going to occur after the fact. And again, we'll go through the scripture. We won't just read and cherry pick the line. Let's go a little bit before and a little bit after. Let's get the context of what he's talking about. Let's really, let's not be sheep. There's some online resources that I'm going to refer to as well. Right? There's a very good resource. Let's see. Let's find the right place here. Sorry, there we go. There's a very good resource for comparison that I use, which is the Sacred Text Archive, which has a really good polyglot version of the Bible, and so you can look at the Hebrew, at least, and see the roots, see the definitions. And in the case of the Septuagint, the Greek, Latin, and some other things like the Vulgate, so forth, the roots are present in that as well. So, like in this case here, Comforter, we have the Greek. Because obviously we're in New Testament, right? We're not in the Old Testament, and so we're looking at translations from the Greek and the Latin, as opposed to from the Hebrew and the Aramaic, which is what we're used to seeing in the Old Testament. So, but that said, nonetheless, it still gives us some sense of the intention of the author, right? Before we get into our own modern reinterpretation and redefinition from the zeitgeist of what these words mean now, and so we can just ignore that and use it to tailor the message to our narrative and obviously prove ourselves to be the holders of the keys, the keepers of the truth, or whatever you want to call it. And so that's the process. And so before we get into the quotes themselves, let's just have a quick little conversation about the Holy Spirit from our current understanding, right? Let's talk really super general about what we're actually talking about, right? So there was God the Father, that big, angry, mean dude with a beard from the Old Testament. Well, that all got said and done. I don't think anyone understands what the middle is, whatever. Something happened between here and there where there's this Old Testament and a new one, and in between doesn't matter, whatever. So that old guy with the beard, he's out. Yeah, he's scary. I don't want to talk about him. We've got a new guy with a beard. The new guy with a beard is all love and light, baby. He's cool. He's like a hippie. Do what you want and you're forgived, as long as you hate brown people. I mean, let's not forget that. Which is even funnier. Can we talk about the fact that there are no white people in the Old Testament? Like, right? Can we talk about the fact that there's very few people that could even remotely be considered close to white in the New Testament? Even the Romans? Come on. Anyway, that said though, and so, you know, there's this idea of like, and then so now we have Jesus, right? And so now we have the whole story of that, and obviously we all know the great, beautiful story of this redemption and this beautiful sacrifice that he made, and whatever the case, and there he is talking to the disciples before it all goes down, and, you know, hey, listen, I'm going to have to go through this thing, and I won't be around. But while I'm gone, the Father's going to send this thing that's going to be there, right? And that's going to allow us to kind of like be connected. It'll be in every breath. It'll be in our thoughts. It's always there, so you can always communicate with it. And then there's this other mechanism where when two of you come together in my name, he says, I will be present as well, right? Like he's in the room too, is the consensus of that language from the you know, whatever, when people tell this story back to me. Okay, cool, that's all right, neat. Okay, so there's this Holy Spirit that when you leave is going to show up and is going to be here. Yeah, it'll come in like a great wind and all this great. And then we got the Pentecost, right, where the wind comes in and the Yud appears above their heads as this enlightenment. And they all share the experience. And so, yeah, dude, it's cool. It's like an internet you can plug into. It's like spiritual networking. Not sure what they're implying. And so now the rub comes that the old Catholics used to say, well, yeah, God the Father, and from the Father emerged the Holy Spirit, like the breath of God. The breath of God. This wind, this burst of wind, this idea of mind, this idea, it's very interesting correlation to maybe some other concepts that talk about that too. You know, we're talking about breath of God. Like, think about that. If God spoke, there's this implication of the inhale before the word came out, right? And what did he inhale into? You know, these are obviously human words to talk about a concept beyond that. So I'm not implying that there was a lung that took a breath in, but I'm implying that there's this idea that there was an emergence of a knowing, a self-knowing, and that self-knowing necessitated a space to emerge into, and it could not have emerged until the space was there. So we run into this kind of like paradox dichotomy of chicken and the egg. Which came first, the thought or the space where the thought was able to emerge and allowed to emerge in? And if the space wasn't there, the thought couldn't emerge. But without the thought, the space wasn't necessitated, so it didn't exist. And so how do you reconcile that? Well, you can't. That's the beauty of it. That's the above the abyss that the Kabbalists talk about. When we look at the tree and we see that space above the tree, or above the that gap in between here. And these three kind of concepts on top are very awfully misunderstood in 25 different ways to be sort of telling this story of the idea of a light emerging, of it being seen, and the thing that sees it doesn't realize it's looking in the mirror. It's seeing a reflection of itself bouncing off of itself. And the light is actually the thing that it is. You're not the speaker or the listener, you're the thing being spoken. The thing being spoken is the will behind the desire to speak anyway, the necessity to choose an identity and a vocabulary. To imagine a listener outside of the self. The Holy Spirit The Holy Spirit is the breath that God took in to speak the words of creation that are being spoken right now. And what is the sun? S-O-N. But the big, beautiful myriad of color that is the product of that. The letters themselves unfolding. Being carried on that wind. Being seen in her. We've heard that story told 17 different ways. That's just one way. So that's what's going on in the news right now. This idea that the Pope dare reference the Nicene Creed, but leave out "and the Son" when it comes to the emergence of the Holy Spirit. So let's just get down to the actual quote, right? Let's start with my copy here, the one that a lot of people are going to be familiar with, right? That's sort of like modern interpretation. I know there's a lot of New Revised Standard, New International. This is a New King James. This particular one is from Nelson. It is in my possession as a gift, and I've had it for a very long time. It came highlighted. There's a bunch of different verses in here that were highlighted by somebody prior to me. But the actual verse that we're looking at here is going to be found in John chapter 15. And we're looking at, I believe, verse 25 and 26. Yeah, you know, I'm in very low light. It's funny. I looked at this right before streaming, and then I put my lights on for my stream, and I am literally unable to read. Let me find my glasses. There we go. Okay. Yeah, you know, because if I put light on my screen for me to be able to see it, it's just going to glare to everybody else, and then my camera will glitch. And so this is I apologize. This is for you guys so you can see what's on the screen. And so, yes, it is verse 26. I apologize. We're in John 15:26. But when the Helper comes, whom I shall send to you from the Father, the Spirit of truth who proceeds from the Father, he will testify of me. And you will bear witness, because you have been with me from the beginning. Which is a whole nother, what is he talking about from the beginning? There's all kinds of implication in what's being spoken here that's kind of ignored in the conversation. They're just talking about, well, yeah, but it emerges from what? Who proceeded from where? Pro. What was that? Who's first? Power, authority, my guy. Let's just relax and review the words. Here they even discuss it as the helper, right? Here the word is helper. And that word is always different. I don't care what translation you pick. It's going to be a different word. So we're going to get to the core of what is the word. So let's look at another translation. This one is from Sacred Text Archive. Shout out. The version that I am using is the Polyglot. If you go to the Bible section, which is here on the left-hand side, and you'll notice there's various versions, including Tanakh, Apocrypha, the Vulgate, the Septuagint, the GNT, which is what they use to translate this copy of the Polyglot, and then a Polyglot, which is essentially their very generous and clever use of technology to give us all 3 or 4 or 2, depending upon the translation. We don't always get all 4. And allows us to, get a little bit of a sense, like when we see this Bereshit, the first word of the Bible, which is really 2 words. The first word is Reshit, and that bet is added as a very special use of this term. And it's only used in this case, which is very interesting. It's sort of a decision that they made to maybe highlight something, or why they decided to put bet first. I have my own opinions on, and I speak about, but I'll allow you to kind of do your own research on that and come to a conclusion. This whole in the beginning. But anyway, that said, this is the version that we're going to be looking into, right? And so let's jump over to John. And we're looking at John 15:26. But when the Comforter is come, whom I will send unto you from the Father, even the Spirit of truth, which proceedeth from the Father, he shall testify of me. And ye also shall bear witness, because ye have been with me from the beginning. Okay. And from the beginning here we have okay. And if we take this, just to be clear, to Genesis, we see that word appears here as well, like as the term for beginning, used in both circumstances, right? In that translation, they didn't make a distinction between that type. There's some words have distinctions that are subtle enough to not be so obvious to your average reader. It's not our faults, right? We're not linguistic experts, and frankly, there's so much information that it's hard for the truth to be heard inside of that whole cloud. And so you can understand, we have to kind of give ourselves a little bit of a break, but also we can't be mentally lazy and just agree. We have to be open to changing our opinion when we are presented with information that is, sufficiently vetted and comes from a source that we know we can trust, at least from a moral perspective, that there's not an agenda, but it's from a as true as you can state that their goal is to find that truth, right? That's the goal. If that's the work that person's trying to do, we can maybe fault some confusion and misunderstanding, and then set it straight, and so that we can all become stewards of the truth and maintain the integrity as best as we can, and to see it being willfully and intentionally distorted for the purposes of being weaponized. And we certainly want to avoid that at all costs, right? So, and let's look at that root word for comforter. Parakletos. Or is that Parakletos? Not so good at the Greek. I have very decent Hebrew pronunciation. Being an Italian from Brooklyn, I grew up, especially the Coney Island area, I grew up around a lot of Jewish influence, and it just sort of, you hear it spoken, so you understand certain terms that you wouldn't if you'd never heard it spoken, and so forth. And I've done my fair share of Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam in my day, even as an Italian. So that said, Jen, how's it going? Thank you so much for doing that. I appreciate it. And that really means a lot. Like, it really does. Yeah, a fun subject tonight. Just kind of talking about, there's some stuff that popped into the news with respect to the Pope and the Holy Spirit and some other things. And so I'm just trying to shed some light, at least my own perspective, and sort of a magical perspective on the subject, so we can understand the Holy Spirit is essentially this feminine aspect of the Trinity that is often kept separate and is not given the same level of agency and authority that the Father and Son are. And I thought it was time to maybe revisit that, so that people aren't so afraid of this whole concept. You know, she's the breath of God. She is the thing he inhaled before speaking all these things. Right? The reason. Imagine being in the darkness for eternity, self-aware, and then suddenly, finally, in that infinite eternity, you see a light go on in the distance. Right? There's that sense of being so taken by that vision that you gasp, and before you can, you must inhale. And that sound, right? That breath taken in, that will to speak, drove that inhale. And what that breath was filled into, what it entered, was Binah, this divine feminine energy, the divine receptive, the receptacle for the breath. And then when she was filled up with that breath to infinity, it burst out as light. And we get the Big Bang. And what is the Big Bang but the Sun? S-O-N, right? The union of the Mother and the Father. Except we don't call her the Mother. Right, we throw that around. Well, Mary was kind of the mother, but then there's also kind of the Mary Magdalene figure, which is really the feminine, but then we also have that evil Babylon, and let's not forget Eve. Let's not forget what she did. But really what it looks like when you do the math, right? When you kind of like let your heart follow the breadcrumbs, it brings you to the truth and the knowing that, no, the breath did have to come first, didn't it? The will to speak came first. And then that will necessitated the breath in order to speak. You know, and the word being spoken to create the universe isn't something that happened a long time ago. It's happening right now. We are the name being spoken. God spoke the existence into reality. God spoke reality into existence. God spoke all of this into being. But no, he didn't. He is speaking it into being as we speak, and it's not a he. Enough of that. You know, the language doesn't work. Angels, that's not an effective word anymore. It has too many connotations. The Father, no, it has too many connotations. I understand it from the magical perspective, Rosicrucians, before you jump down my throat. I understand Father being the positive energy, the masculine, these ideas. I get it. The wand. But let's not forget that the female wand is the vagina. And the original will was not an active one. It was to receive the breath. And that's the original wand. And so you don't get more active than releasing everything that can be in one flash as a return by spilling your cup. That's very decidedly feminine. Mother's not an accurate word either. That just has the implication of creating a child, yes, but that's not correct. And there's the idea of what that means to be the nourishing force is not at all necessarily, although it is present in, but not necessarily limited to rearing child. I mean, you can get into a philosophical semantic conversation all day long, but that's what we're trying to do here, is to narrow down what we actually mean by these symbols, and so that we can hold ourselves accountable for when we abuse them, and accidentally, even if it's subconsciously, abuse them in order to perpetuate an agenda that whether it's our ego, whether it's our insecurity that wants us to stay part of some club, and so we continue to ignore what we know to be true, or don't look any further, or justify certain beliefs. No, let's be open to trying to really narrow down the truth and what's going on here, and say to ourselves, okay, now that I know that truth, maybe I can feel better about when I contribute to the conversation, that I'm not just spreading some kind of nonsense or becoming a unwitting tool for some crazy agenda that I can't even be aware is thing and that occurs, right? I don't even know that I'm being a puppet for some side. That's what we're here to do at the end of the day. Isn't that what we're here to try to hold all of ourselves to account for? Jen, you're just amazing, and I thank you for that. That means a lot. Thank you for listening. It's very generous of you, by the way. And so, we really need to, especially if we find ourselves in the position of having this drive to want to actually know this truth. We're all just seeking. Sometimes there's such an emptiness inside of us after years of seeking and just being cynically proven right, that it's all nonsense and agenda, or that people, are so close but don't get it, and we all feel alone, that when we see one little glimmer of a truth, we jump on it, but we can't do that. We have to have the strength to say, no, let's do the work, let's do the looking, let's really get a sense of what we're talking about here, and try not to spread more suffering, try not to spread more separation. And even the Jews, Muslims, and Catholics can all agree on Abraham, right? Like, we can at least come to the table for Avram. We need each other. And the beauty is we actually have each other. We just aren't letting it in because we're too busy trying to make sure that we stay as part of the club or whatever else, right? And that's okay. Let's not judge ourselves for that. But let's play, right? What do the sages do, right? What do we play with our toys? And so let's do that. Let's get a sense of what these symbols really mean. This light that emerged, the Yud over the heads of the disciples during the Pentecost, the Holy Spirit coming in as a great wind. That's actually the wind that the lantern is designed to protect. We've all seen the image of the hermit, right? That's the Yud. Yud in the tarot is the hermit card. Okay, I'm going to pull one up as we're talking here, so you'll see it shortly. But we've all seen the hermit card. And what this card is referring to is a very specific idea during the birth process. And many people are not aware that that was the basis for this imagery. And it's going to become clear as we talk here a little further. But this idea of the hermit is the card related to the letter Yud. And he's almost always depicted with a lantern, right? Ladies and gentlemen, Tanamera is in the house. Shark energy. What this lantern is doing is protecting the flame inside from the wind. Notice the wheat. Notice how the wheat is all being blown around, right? It's not a calm, quiet moment. But the flame is being protected inside of that lantern. And so that is the goal. That is the purpose of the lantern. Notice that we have the spermatozoa that's very prominently depicted here, and oft missed by people who look at this deck. There's that egg. What's going on right now? That dark period of time that the hermit is experiencing is this walk through the birth canal. It's simultaneously the moment of your birth and the moment of your conception. And you're looking at a holographic representation of that in this piece of artwork. Frida Harris was a magus of the highest order in the way that she was able to depict these concepts visually. course, we have Cerberus on the bottom, three-headed dog, who is the guardian of the underworld. Because, of course, that's where we emerge from, don't we? In the cycle. And this is the reemergence from the dark into the light. It's the moon card where you see the little crab coming out of the water. Same idea. And so the letter Yud, which is Kabbalistically the symbol of the hermit, is this idea of conception taking place. That space where, or about to, it's about to. It depends upon what occurs during this time. And do you see that light as the path, or do you see that light as something to run from? Do you insist that that light is you? Do you insist that that light is someone else? Who we're being oftentimes determines the object of our desire. And the object of our desire, that can drive so much decision, so much definition. and we can miss the truth. Walking around believing we have it. So much more to think about. These symbols appear in so many places. This Aleph Mem Shin that we hear about in the Kabbalistic system, the Aleph is that sort of primordial air, right? The winds of the mind of God, where the original thought emerged. If you have the Aleph Mem Shin and you try to correlate that to the top of the tree, you may say to yourself, well, Ketcher is the Aleph, right? The Shin would be Hokmah, who is that light, that fire, and then that got seen by Binah, right? And she's the Mem, the water, that feminine. But interestingly, we always know water as the thing that does the conveying, right? The cup that receives. And so, which one is the medium, so to speak? Which one is the speaker, which one's the listener, and which one's the thing being spoken? Because frankly, it depends upon your perspective. If you're Binah, you think you're receiving the light, but you don't realize you're looking into a mirror. And you're the one sending the light. If you're Hokmah, and you see the darkness, that's because you're in a state of listening and you haven't discovered yourself yet. Which means you're actually Binah because you're in the state of reception. Isn't that interesting? And again, it's a very difficult sort of myriad maze of meaning up there in that world. Above the abyss is all kinds of mashed together, and it all makes sense because it doesn't make sense, because there is no duality. Duality is bullshit. Every two has a third, and that third becomes a new one, which then has a second, which has a third, and it just continues to annihilate. And so that's why three things are necessary for there to be any one thing. You know, the simplest shape being the tetrahedron, the three on the bottom with one point that's not on that face gives us the simplest 3D shape. We can't have a conversation without annihilating the arguments until we finally add a perspective that's both but neither, and we finally come to the crux of what we're talking about, that in the middle. And so it just falls back into a unity, which becomes a duality, which becomes a trinity, which becomes a unity. And that's the beauty of above the abyss thinking. We're not meant to understand. It can't be understood. Understanding is the thing you become, not the thing you're in the process of doing. Understanding is not a verb, it's a noun. And to become it is to recognize that you're ever changing, right? It's not a constant. That's knowing. Oh, I know this thing. Well, turns out that's not so constant either, is it? We like to pretend, but very often the things that we know change, don't they? Yes, they do. Good thing. There's a lot of things that I know right now that I wish would change. So I'm just going to take a quick break from that subject and see if I kind of check in on the chat here and see how everyone's doing this evening. Tanamera, thank you again. And thanks for your advice on the audio. Is it better tonight? You got to tell me if it's too loud, and I'll take care of that. Jen, again, thank you so much. If you're not here, we're talking about you. That little itch, it's us. And if you are here, we're talking about you, and that itch, that's us. Yeah, and some stuff popped into the news today that got me all interested in talking about some biblical stuff over the past couple of days with respect to the tarot and magic, and maybe, get the magical perspective on some pretty complicated subjects. Look at it Kabbalistically, look at it Hermetically, look at it dogmatically with respect to modern agenda. And specifically the Holy Spirit with respect to the feminine seat at the table in the spiritual conversation, right? And of course, I threw the hot take that she was first. So. Okay. Oh, okay. So it's the EDM that's doing it. I understand. Yeah. One of the reasons that I switched was because every time I used a resource for music, even if it was approved by Google, the stuff was getting muted, and I don't have time for that. And this is the only magical resource I've found, or musical rather, that I have had no issues with. They are happy to let people use their music, and so it's one of those things. And it adds an interesting kind of energy to the stream every once in a while. So, but I know it's hard for me to find that middle with the music, and so I try my best to kind of just put it on there and hope it works, Let's see, neurotypical people probably don't receive an amplifier like I do. They love to censor people. Okay. Well, I don't know. I would say more appropriately, yeah. There's due to the fact that they have hypersensitivity, they're in a constant state of censoring everything in their lives, right? It's got to be kind of a, weird, difficult way. And I can imagine how over time that would certainly inform how you develop your interaction with the world, and that could seem awkward from the outside, when it's really just a way of trying to protect yourself that comes off as judgy. I can understand wanting someone to turn their music down, but at the same time, it's like, man, I want to make it louder. But I hear you. Yeah, sure. And I'm sure that happens, right? That occurs a lot too, unfortunately. You'll have some Russian bot farm will claim your music when they don't even have right to it, and rather than worry about a lawsuit, you will automatically just get flagged and then have to fight it to get your stuff back up. You will guarantee to get your stuff back up because it's clear as crystal they don't have the right to make the claim, and so the claim falls off, but in the meantime you're off for a day or two, and it's a big pain in the butt. Well, that's okay. Tell you what, Tanamera, just for a moment, you don't have to multitask. Right? While we're here, that's it. No imposition, no expectation, no necessity for the creation of an identity in order to facilitate some communication. We're just sitting here having words, feeling each other breathe in and out, taking it all in, adding our 2 cents, right? This is the place to be. Yeah, that'll do it. And it's not always so easy to work around that, right? And to find a new path to get the same things done. It's not always easy to overcome injury. That sort of forces you to change the way you do certain things. It's difficult. It's hard to relearn or develop new ways. But that's kind of what you've been forced to do, and look what happened because of that, right? Because of that, you've been forced to use different perspectives, different angles, different means, and it's made you stronger. And I don't just mean that in the sort of like self-help philosophical made you stronger. I mean, it's literally made you a more functional human animal that has the capacity to utilize parts of her perception that she didn't before, has the power to utilize certain parts of her physical being that she didn't before. Right? Like I was speaking to somebody who's a tarot reader recently, who's doing an art project, and they're forcing themselves to use their left hand for specific reasons. I don't think it's necessarily part of the project that they're just using their left hand, but it's their offhand. And we had an interesting conversation about how that affects the creation, how it affects the thoughts that you have, and it's inadvertently facilitating growth in the off hemisphere. And you could see that effect in other areas of your life that you hadn't considered. So by virtue of working on your motor skill, it's going to begin to wake up certain portions of your brain on the weak hemisphere that can potentially also wind up having an effect in other parts of your thinking. And you could participate in that process to help to accelerate that and to make that more general, which can be super useful. And so that said, there's so many ways that this story is attempted to be told over the years, right? The story of life and death, creation, love, redemption, justice, anger, cruelty. To such a degree that we can identify it in others very easily. In fact, we're so good at it, we can ignore it in our own lives just as easily. I think part of the hard part of dealing with darkness is that we know deep inside of us that we're capable of those same things. Perhaps not to the same degree or even within the same realm of actual thinking, but we're capable of darkness, we're capable of violence, we're capable of anger, we're capable of hating in the name of love. And we got to be careful when we're doing that. It's not about everything being love and light, but it's also about not seeing everything through shit-colored glasses. Was it Mathers who said it? The world is a mirror in which one who sees muck is muck. And it gives us the power to clear our space, to insist upon beauty, to be that beauty, so that other people don't see muck, but they see beauty. And they start to believe that it's possible, and it starts to believe that they know that it's in them also. At a good volume now. The distraction is mostly the static for another person singing. Okay. Oh, I see. It's like their words competing with mine turns into static. That makes sense. Okay, so the white noise sound, yeah, sure. Yeah, I may have to rethink the music entirely. That's why I had put some kind of like a lo-fi beat, thinking that it wasn't going to distract from words. It's been a thorn in my side for since I've been streaming, to figure out this stupid thing of having a soundtrack. Which is funny because I'm a musician. I just don't have the capacity to record the music properly. I'm like missing some components to do it, and so I can't. Otherwise, I would just have my own music that was mine, and so no one can copyright claim my own stuff. But that said, it's It's not quite possible right now, and so I'm at the mercy of the bot. Or I can just shut the music off, which I find to be a totally different vibe. Then I don't know necessarily if that's what I want to do. I don't know. I feel like, it's hard to escape that drive to fill in the silence, and that's not what I'm here to do, is to just fill silence. I actually want to have a real conversation. I want to actually, learn something. I want to contribute to the conversation. I want to, it's not about filling space. So. And there are simple and common techniques for experiencing what I've been talking about tonight. The Holy Spirit, the speaking, listening, the things spoken, understanding these ideas. Let's see, how about the use of nature sounds, like meditation? Yeah, no, I've considered a whole bunch of stuff, and there's an advantage and disadvantage to all of them. One of the reasons I avoided nature sounds is because it's like telling the algorithm that you're another ASMR channel, and I don't want to be bundled up with that, with the algorithm, so that's actually for the robot. I'm considering how I'm going to be perceived by the robot, so the music is going to, certainly separate that. This is not going to be another SMR channel that's got, like, thunderstorms in the back. And I mean, that's good, but it's also a little too peaceful. People drowned out. They're not paying attention to the words, and that's not what I'm trying to do. Those channels are there, and if that's the mood of the place you want to go right now, that's better than me talking to the void, But yeah, I know. I've thought it through big time, and that's a good idea. But yeah, I don't know, and I don't really know if it's what I'm trying to do. I think that's a little too kind of the people I'm trying to shut down. These people that make everything so, all warmy, foofy, fuzzy, and so no one will face reality while they sit in their cave and don't live life and pretend that, humming an A sharp is going to crack the universe open. And so what I decided to do, and what I wound up doing is just like literally duct taping me all together in a big pile and putting it out there. And so it's going to seem a little boomer. I'm not using the toys that I'm supposed to be, right? I'm not using the blink blinks and the doodads that they want me to. I'm not gamifying my experience. I'm not, making sure that my channel is also streaming the same artist of the week. And I don't know if it's going to work or not. I mean, but it's certainly at least, I don't know, what do I call it? Authentic. I know, we're X, baby. We are X. Yeah, I was being dramatic. Yeah, we're the voice of reason. We got to see the boomers destroy our planet. Children just laid to waste while they had their fun, just doing their blow. Disgusting people. And now look at them. Look at our Congress in the United States. Look at our president. That's the boomer generation. It's disgusting. Get it? Just enough already. And this new generation. They have an opportunity, this new generation. They have an opportunity here, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes, because it's not looking so good. They're not all bad. There's certainly people in that generation that can see what's happened, can take responsibility. But not always, that's It's okay. I guess, well, we don't have to wait too much longer. I don't mean to be so grim about it, but, we don't have to wait too much longer, do we? What percentage of the people in power right now won't be around in 5 years just by virtue of the fact that nature is a clock and they're getting up there? All these people are 70, 80 years old, being kept alive by machines inside their bodies and drugs, making them look like they're coherent. How long can you polish that up before it starts to become evident that their brains don't work anymore? You better hurry up with your AI, guys, because soon when these people can't talk, you're going to have their avatars doing the talking for them, and we're going to see through it if the algorithm isn't good, right? If your AI isn't sharp enough, we're going to hear that it's fake. So you guys better get your act together, man. You start plugging in the 90 and 100-year-olds that are going to be hanging around trying to pass laws for the plebes that eat the crumbs while the AIs keep their bodies alive, or whatever their stupid plan is. Have fun, man. And turn yourself into a bicentennial, man. Replace your heart, replace your lungs, replace your organs, replace your everything, and it will change you. Sure it will. Of course it will. And will it change you for better or worse? That's difficult to say. That's for every person. But what it will do is change your perspective on the rest of us. It's the same reason that it's impossible for somebody with billions of dollars to know anything about the current perspective on the world from our perspective. How can you not be out of touch? Stop pretending. Well, the transhuman agenda is happening, love, like it or not. That's our future, period. There's no avoiding it. That is the reality. It's obvious that would be the progression of technology, is the prolonging of life. But now the question is of course the prolonging of whose life? Something tells me, like the bullshit we're fed that we're all going to have robots because they're going to be cheaper than a car doesn't preclude the fact that the real reason we're doing is to beta test robots that they can live inside of and then kind of not die. And so am I going to get one of those? No. Of course not. Nicotine kills nanotech? I don't know. I've never heard that. Is that true? If that were true, cigarettes would have been illegal 30 years ago. What are you talking about? Nicotine is naturally occurring in most vegetables. In fact, the highest density of nicotine found in nature, including the tobacco plant, is cauliflower. Cauliflower has more nicotine than tobacco. True story. And so, eat some cauliflower, man. Right? No, but that said, I have never heard that. I can't speak to it. But okay. Interesting. That sounds like a little too general. I think it'd be easy once you knew that to work around that fact through the use of polymers and certain chemical barriers and so on. It wouldn't be hard to create some type of shell that the nanobot would be able to work within a hostile environment. I mean, if the only hostility that you need to work with is a high density of nicotine, it wouldn't take me long to work around that, right? Let's be real. I remember when that was all going down. What was it? Al Gore's sister passed away from lung cancer, and he kind of made it his life's mission to declare war on cigarettes. And the date is in. It's kind of obvious it's killing us. Like, it is giving us heart attacks. It does give us strokes. It does give us anxiety. It does give us elevated heart rate, elevated blood pressure. It is addicting, you know, and so these things are true. And you know, his whole crusade was based on the advertising, right? His whole crusade was on, it's not okay to be marketing this shit to children. And I agree with that, because let's be honest, being a Gen Xer, we remember back in the day, we had bubblegum cigarettes that you could blow, and chalk, like dust, candy dust, would come out the other end like you looked like you were smoking. Like, really? And guess what? I'm an adult who smokes at 50 years old, so, you know, And if I'm being honest, I'm probably, by average of the mathematics, not going to make it to 70 because I'm still smoking. So, you know. Now, does that mean it's your job to legislate that, and I should have the choice, right? So shouldn't we then therefore outlaw alcohol? Let's outlaw bacon, right? Can't be having bacon. It causes heart disease, right? Oh, well, we can't have you know, pretty ladies on the internet because you know, it's gonna fuck with our rewards. No, of course not. It's my right to decide that I want to be stupid, knowing the consequences. That's why we get on roller coasters. That's why we do bungee jumping. That's why we eat Alfredo when we're lactose intolerant, because it tastes good, right? That's why we drink our coffee knowing that we probably should calm down and just do the 1 cup a day. It's none of your business. And you don't get to legislate what I like and don't like and what's bad and good for me. You know what's bad for me? You constantly telling me what's bad for me. Right? So you know what I'm talking about. Because I understand. Like, how do you, like, find that middle between protecting people and freedom? That's a tough subject. And thank God I'm not the one that has to make that decision. I just want to be the one that's left alone to do what I want. And you know, that's the real wisdom. Like, we don't want to be responsible, but at the same time, we just kind of want to be left alone. And no, smoking does not kill stress. Smoking satiates the desire to smoke. So we have this little mini anxiety to smoke, and so since that goes away, we think that it actually helps us with anxiousness. It doesn't. It increases anxiety by increasing blood pressure, reducing blood flow, increasing heart rate, increasing respiration, and all of those things are tied to the natural reaction to fear. When we come in contact with something that we consider to be a danger, all those things happen on purpose, to put ourselves in a very hyper-focused state in order to deal with that perceived danger. That's anxiety. And when we do that on purpose through smoking a cigarette, when there's no danger in the room, we're training our body that response is not a danger response, it's a natural response. We can't respond to danger anymore effectively. We have anxiety when we don't belong having it. We don't have anxiety when we should. And you know, it's not just cigarettes that does that, but certainly a lot of influences on our lives that are being stretched, used, and abused for profit by weaponizing our limbic system, right? Oh, that's true. That's right, that's right, that's right. Smoking doesn't kill, stress does, that's right. Smoking increases stress, though. It's a silly behavior that at the same time is kind of like, I don't know, it's almost like a control, right? It's a stupid thing that we do because, damn it, you're not going to tell me I can't. It's so foolish and childish and sophomoric and revealing and you know, but at the same time, I've been up and down, I've quit a bunch of times. It's one of those things, you know. Well, no, cortisol is definitely the heart attack enzyme. You know, you don't want that. That's the you know, the soft belly fat holds a lot of cortisol. Stress creates cortisol as a response, and so, or they're related to each other. But that said, though, I don't know. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a neuroscientist. It feels like there could easily be a correlation between the fact that cigarettes happen to mimic the response of danger, and that's not healthy. You know, I think that's a pretty safe thing to say. So, yeah. Because if that were the case, they would have already done like what they did with CBD, where they take cigarettes and they turn it into a pill instead, so you can have the same effect of the nicotine without having the smoke. But that's not the case, and we don't have a $17 billion industry of reducing cortisol based on cigarette. And so if they could profit on it, they would. And frankly, I think what they want is for us to like fucking finally leave this planet, and so they're happy to let us smoke. Because you know that redistribution of wealth that took place where all the boomers are leaving their money to their Xers? Well, if the Xers aren't there to get it, then that money's going to trickle right down. I'd say just eat the cauliflower. It's a natural form of nicotine. It's non-addictive. It won't give you the jitters of the 17,000 other chemicals that are in the cigarette, right? You're not putting money in some fat, evil white guy's pocket that's trying to kill us all and doesn't care about, you know? And if it does take care of the nanobots and it does take care of cortisol, then you'll have the benefit of it naturally by eating cauliflower, right? Or eating other high in nicotine vegetables that don't include you having to be indoctrinated with 17,000 other chemicals at the same time, right? I'm in. That's it. I'm sorry. There's another way to eat cauliflower? Because that's how I do it. Actually, there is another way, and it's called dipped in egg, breadcrumbs, and then deep fried. That's how we did it in the South, baby. That's some Georgia. Fried okra. So you take the cauliflower and you cut it up into slices with the floret on top, like so you got the whole flower and then the stem, but a thin slice, and you dip that in egg like you would eggplant, and then breadcrumb back in the egg, back in the breadcrumb, right, and then you fry that in a pan with oil. So good. And if you want, then you can dip that in cheese and bacon. That will increase your chances of a heart attack. Guaranteed. And oh my God, it's so good though. I love bacon bits. I put bacon bits on a lot of stuff, actually. One of my favorite things to eat for a really long time was rotini noodles. Sometimes tricolored, but usually just the regular pasta. But rotini noodles, chickpeas, vinegar and oil, and bacon bits. And that was my meal. That was it. Cold. I ate it cold. It wasn't hot. It was cold. Delicious. It's sort of just like a quick, fresh bunch of textures. It's very filling. It's got a whole bunch of neat stuff in there. And I'm a fan of garbanzo. Smoky bacon potato chips. See, what I like about you is that we've been talking food now for just a small period of time, T. You've said a couple of things, and bacon was involved in pretty much everything you've said. Because bacon belongs everywhere. Bacon belongs in every meal. Even if it's just present in spirit. That's a lot of chips. I'm sure that was fun the next day. And the day after, and the day after, no. Yeah, we have some bacon. Actually, I got to get ready to pull that out too for Thanksgiving. We're doing Thanksgiving here in the U.S. in a couple days. This Thursday. Okay. That's where we celebrate the murder of the Indians. And so, we already took the bird out and it's defrosting. But we got to take out the bacon for the stuffing. Oh, yeah, stuffing. Gravy, potatoes, love. Being grateful. Being really, really thankful that I'm not Native American. And And so I don't have to sit here and watch a bunch of Americans celebrate the destruction of my people as a holiday. Huh. Wrap the turkey in bacon. I mean, I could see that doing some serious stuff to that skin too, right? Like the fat, as it bakes, is going to sort of fry it as it goes. And you would wind up with this kind of like turkey skin bacon. Oh, let's talk about alchemy. Whew. That's alchemy. I don't even know what that word means. I don't even care. It's immigrant, migrant, visitor, whatever, dude. You're on this side of the line. You're on that side of the line. You know, it's I get it. But it's, okay. You know what they like to do in the South a lot? Deep fry the turkey. How many houses burn down every year from folks trying to deep fry their turkey and not really getting that right? Look, it's step one. Do it outside. Step two. No, listen. Perhaps you didn't hear me. Do it outside. If you're deep frying your turkey in your house and your house burns down, no shit. I mean, think about the silly projects you and your buddies are doing over the weekends all the time that would be even close to related to that. Would you ever do that shit in your kitchen? Of course not. But this, you're going to do in your kitchen. No, I got it. Do you? Sounds like the Spirit of Fire is having a little celebration at your house this Thanksgiving. Deep frying a turkey. Go ahead. It's great. Listen, anyone who's eaten a deep fried turkey, I understand why you do it. That's the way it was supposed to be cooked. But danger, man. Take it outside. Shit. Burn down the front lawn, not the back porch. Kapow turkey instead of kung pao chicken. That's funny. I'm stealing that. What do you guys do up there, right? Is there any kind of similar equivalent? Or I know you do Boxing Day, right? Is Boxing Day Thanksgiving, or when do you? What's your deal up there? Two layers. Now she's getting serious. Shit, I mean, what's better than having your turkey all layered up in bacon? Your turkey layered all up in chew bacon. Okay. Ours was in October. Okay. Cool. Yeah, remember the French-Indian War, right? You guys took the Indian side, and America was like, fuck that. So weird, that whole thing. French-Indian War. A lot of people hear that and think that meant that the French were against the Indian. No, the French and Indian were together, right? Which became Eastern Canada. You know, outside that Eastern Canada. I don't know how you feel about those people over in Montreal, but I know some buddies out in the West, Calgary, Alberta, that aren't so fond of the people to the east. It's very strange. It's weird how there's some weird separation. Everywhere you go, there's like kind of weird. There's some border, right? There's some freaking stupid imaginary line. I only know one human from Saskatchewan. Very mixed opinions. She's also stabby. Who was that guy from years ago? King Ralph. He was a political figure that was running for office back in the day when I was doing business with some people up in that neck of the woods. I was in consulting, and a lot of the work I was doing was in education and healthcare, and they were a big healthcare group. Education was a big portion of something that we were kind of breaking into, but we wound up getting into a project together with something related to healthcare, and long story short, I started doing a lot more work with Western Canada, which was nice because I didn't have to pull out the bad French. My French is very not good. Sweet potato turkey shepherd pie. Yeah, there you go. Oh, I can't wait for the leftovers. There's all kind of ideas that Aurora and then I have been kicking around for what we're going to do for after. All I can say is we're going to love every minute of it. I can't wait for the coma. My favorite thing is that Thanksgiving coma when you hit your second, third helping of the potatoes and you already had too much stuffing and the gravy just like hit, and then everything stuck to your ribs, and then it hits. I mean, absolutely black hole level tired. That like you're so heavy. You can't even complain about how tired you are, and it's just sink into that bliss. I love that. That link made it, right? Like I gave your mod allows you to post links, and that came through okay. Can you see that over there on your side? Did her link work? Okay, good. Because sometimes they get stopped, but I forgot that you're mod, so it's fine. So cool. But yeah. Yeah, no, it's going to be fun. We're doing the obligatory pumpkin pie, which I'm looking forward to because I don't really eat it any other time of the year. Just toward the end of the year. Sometimes it's around for Christmas, but it's always around for Thanksgiving. So, yeah. One year, pumpkins were hard to come by, and so I wound up making them with sweet potato. I used every other kind of gourd that I could, and when I wasn't able to find anything like a butternut squash, which is also very good, a butternut squash for pumpkin pie instead of pumpkin. Absolutely, no one will know the difference. It's the same color, the same texture. You'd never know. You just got to blend it a little bit better than you would the pumpkin, but that's all. But it's really, really good. And if you season a sweet potato pie the same way, it can be very close. But really, you need milk, right? You need that heavy cream kind of vibe. You need the right level of heat in the spice to keep it in, seasonal. But you'd be surprised. Butternut squash and pumpkin are so close, man. Like, so slow night tonight for readings, I guess. We had a couple of people sort of pop in and out, but no one has really, sought advice on anything. I'm just going to pop a random card out here. Two of Pentacles. Two of Pentacles is the card right after Sagittarius. This is the first card of Capricorn. And it is this sort of moment of after the Phoenix has risen in Sagittarius, and there's this moment of descent at the same time, right? Because if you consider what's happening in the Phoenix, the old goes into the fire, and in the ashes is born the new thing. It's the ashes of the burning that creates that new thing. So the new thing gets elevated. The stuff that gets left behind descends. And so the Two of Pentacles is that first stage after that descent. The Phoenix has gone and flown off, and it's up doing things right now, and now we're back down here, and you find yourself in the Devil card. And in that Devil card is where we begin this process of kind of getting lost and stuck in that place of thinking that the solid world is everything, and there's this sort of like disconnection between the two worlds that begins to form. This is the first stage of that 3 steps of the redemption that takes place inside of that period of time, symbolically, of course. That redemption is available to us at any time. You don't have to wait until you get into the process of moving from Sagittarius into Scorpio. Six of Swords is a very interesting energy too. This is a vibe of directing your energy toward what you know to be true. Another way of putting that is that you're open enough to hearing the different perspectives such that when you reflect it back out, you're able to refine that message so that it's less apt to be misunderstood. You're able to get it out in such a way that it's doesn't leave for much room for misinterpretation. Oh, I'm glad. It is a great deck. It gets the point across in some ways that others don't, simply because of the connection that the artist had to the knowledge, right? It wasn't just a passion project to create a tarot deck. It was a project to specifically encode a very specific doctrine for posterity. Right? And I think they succeeded in doing that. And there's the Ten of Wand, which is that period right before the Two of Cup. Right? The Ten of Wand happens, and let me just illustrate that so that we're clear on what I'm talking about, because I say a lot of things here. I want to make sure that we all have what I'm discussing. The Ten of Wands is the end of Sagittarius. Okay, that's the period of December 13th to December 21st. We just moved into the Eight of Wand, right? A couple days ago. And as we move through time, we move through these astrological periods, and these cards represent that as well. Kitten stepped away for a moment. She'll be right back. And then we move into the Two of Disc. Okay? And that Two of Disc is the first stage of Capricorn. Now, what am I talking about, the devil and all this? Well, in the tarot, the card that represents Capricorn is the devil card, right? And so that's why I bring this word up. So let's just make that clear here. I'm going to pull that card, pop that card up for you, so that becomes clear what I'm talking about. And I'm going to be bringing up the Thoth Tarot Devil card, which is the card that they use to represent Capricorn. Okay, let's get that full on screen. Okay, it's the Hebrew letter Ayin, and what this is referring to is the fixed state, as opposed to Sagittarius, which is in mutable fire. This is a very different state. It's been fixed, and it's down to this new energy, which emerges. Now that that mutable has been fixed, it represents itself. It manifests itself as cardinal earth. This solid that also has a fiery quality to it, right? This fiery, earthy nature. I'm going to pop my arrow up, and you'll see that right here. We move from mutable fire into cardinal earth, and the way that that happens is through this. The machination of the fixing is what allows that transformation to take place. Okay. These are all very esoteric ways of talking about a very esoteric subject, right? A very sort of not so easy to grasp idea that we need other symbols to point to, right? So when you see those cards come up together, it's very indicative of exactly that, like that we're moving in through that period of time. From the Ten of Wands into the Two of Pentacles is exactly that process. The fire that was used to consume and give birth to that new, as far as that Phoenix story, that idea, again, leaves some stuff behind. And the stuff that's left behind is... in a sense, fertilizes what's coming next, but more appropriately needs to be reworked so that it can become sublime as well. So it can have the capacity to elevate. Marshmallow caramelized sweet potato. Yes, please.
Suicide?
You're not kidding. Yeah, sure. And then, isn't that the beauty of the bounty before winter? There's this final feast before the famine, right? Before the cold times, before the dark times, before the slow times. And what we do is we celebrate that bounty, that we've done our work and we have the store for the season. And so that outward display of what appears to be debauchery is really just a symbolic representation of the bounty. And so Thanksgiving, can also be this very, very magical symbolic representation of that bounty, and at the same time the respect for the fact that you had nothing to do with it. Thank God there were seeds for us to plant. Thank God there was water for us to use to nourish those seeds. Yes, we did the work. Of course we did. We brought the water to the seed. We planted it deep enough. We separated it enough. We pruned off the leaves. But it was all provided to us. And so we do have to be at least gracious of that while we're celebrating our bounty. I hope that makes sense. Oh, seriously? You were this year's old when you found out about marshmallow caramelized on your... Isn't it great? Isn't it something? I mean, there's no going back once you've... and it's so easy to do, I knew some people who used to decorate it after the fact with maple syrup. Right? And so you'd have your sweet potato with the marshmallow and then a drizzle on top of that of maple syrup. I think it has to be the thicker kind, to be honest. If it's too runny, it affects the texture. Yeah, I know, it's funny too. It's you can bump into stuff that you'd never put together, but when you finally just have the bravery to try, you realize, oh, I do kind of like that. That is a thing I like. All right. We should all be open to that process. Why not? What's the point of holding that back? Well, let's get a random card from the Deviant Moon, okay? So I'm going to hit the Deviant Moon screen, and it's going to pop up a random card, and we'll see what that first card is, okay? Five of Wand. Okay, Five of Wand. That's cool. The Five of Wand is kind of a reminder that sometimes the big bad battles that we think we're fighting are really just a bunch of children trying to figure each other out and see who's what. It's not really a real fight. It's more of a testing ground. So careful how you react, right? Let's not jump around and make all kind of assumptions. Let's not get all afraid and try to be something bigger than we are, and let's just. That's the moment where the alpha emerges, and then from the smoke, the sigma. But this is the moment where all that gets separated, right? This is not a real fight, the Five of Wands. It's more exactly that, an opportunity for you to know who you are, see how you react, see how others react, and find your place. It's sort of about finding your place. We talked about yesterday when I laid all the wands out. The 5 is the stage right before the 6 where that person has been chosen and they're put up on their horse, right? Okay, we got that 2, 3, 4. That's where's my 4. Okay. Now that 5 is exactly that we just talked about. That kind of like little scuffle among boys. These aren't men, these are boys. And then the 6. The 6 is the stage where that person has been chosen, right? Everyone did their thing and the whole group picked their champion. Whether or not they're actually ready for the battle, nonetheless, they're the one that got picked. Right? When this whole scuffle was over, the alpha emerged. And then we get into that period of time with the 7, where the fight's actually taking place, and this is where the test is real. You pass the fake test. Now that you've, got elected, now that you're in power, now that you show it up, prove it, because the fight's happening. And when that fight happens is when we really get a sense of who we are. This is a moment of courage. This is a moment of possibility for transformation. Because what is courage but the anticipation of injury, right? Fear. And fear is the catalyst for courage. And so if you find yourself in a position of power in this moment, that's because you were able to overcome that fear rather than be overcome by it. The 8. It's all come to a head and the decisions have been made. The die has been cast. And the chips fall. And when all the dust settles, you may be a little banged up, but you're alone. All those people who you fought with and you were cheering for you, they weren't there during the battle. They all walked away, and you're by yourself now. A little banged up, wondering what just happened. What just happened? So you pick up the sticks and you keep walking. Maybe you can bring these to some other people that will fight with you. They clearly weren't worthy. The ones that had them before, they let them go. And that's okay. What you can do is use this to reinvent that new self. And that's that process. This becomes the pyre for the old self to facilitate that growth. And this is also illustrated very beautifully in the court cards as well. And the process of being the object of the desire, being the one that has to step up to that, to be noticed by her, and to earn her gift, and in doing so be elevated to king and her queen, and moving through the alchemical stages. I love that. That's it. That's one way to look at it too, right? That's an interesting perspective on that. Thanks for the wands. More kindling. I'll use it to cook my turkey. See, that's interesting because that talks about what happens when you get into the Capricorn, right? If that's the attitude that you take, thanks for the wands, and you use them to build your weapon instead of your pyre. What happens when you get into that devil card is you wind up believing you're shit, and then you get stuck in Tiferet thinking that you're the star, the center. And that could be a dangerous place too. There has to be a little bit of humility during that process, because you recognize that they were just weak. It's not their faults. They were weak. And you may have been stronger, but that doesn't make you better. That just makes you stronger. And that means it's your obligation to protect the weak, not to knock them down because they weren't equal to you, right? And so instead, gather up those sticks and light that as a beacon. And let them watch you dive in. Show them what courage is. Make them believe that they can also have it, and they will become equal. And then there aren't any enemies. There's no or less in the way. That would be a beautiful space. That's just it. That's it. Yep. And if it's your land, they can't tell you what you're building on it. I love that. The people who get to do that, I'm very jealous of. I think that's a perfect analogy, Kitten, by the way. Take those sticks and use them to build your temple. That's exactly what you're doing. And more appropriately, you're building a space to allow the ritual that's about to take place in Capricorn to happen. So that when you find yourself on the other end of Capricorn, which is, of course, Aquarius, the highest magic on this entire wheel, that you're prepared for that moment. You're prepared to be filled up and to pour out appropriately. Right? And so, absolutely. And there's some an important lesson there. Me too. That'd be nice. I kind of do anyway, don't we all? I mean, certainly I don't live off the grid from the sense that I get power from the power company, but, we trade. I pay them. They give me energy. I kind of try to stay out of the local musings and sort of do my own thing, but at the same time, aren't we all doing that? Even when we're pretending to be part of a group, we're just all doing our own thing. Chala. Yeah, one of my favorite cookbooks is the Mennonite cookbook. The Mennonites know how to conserve, how to eat, how to... a Mennonite can feed 20 people with a toothpick and a rubber band, right? It's... I tell you what, pay attention. They know what they're doing. I tell you, I have a really good Mennonite cookbook that I still go back to. Yeah, internet. I don't know. I think that their answer is going to wind up being Elon's satellite network. I think what a lot of us are going to be using in the future is that type of stuff, because they're going to need the ground cable infrastructure for other things. As the internet becomes more of an AI resource, and a lot of the stuff that we're using now for internet turns into processing and inference and these other things, training, and so AI is going to take over a lot of the current ground resources, the copper that's in the world right now, and our internet's going to wind up going almost exclusively wireless in the future, which doesn't really bode well if there's disaster. That's a scary thing. Oh yeah, no, that's sure. Yeah, I don't know. When we were traveling around, did we ever do Mediterranean together? No. There's some good Mediterranean in a few spots in the city. Yeah, we didn't really get to pop around too much when we were there. But yeah, there's some pretty good Mediterranean in New York. I love Middle Eastern food. Oof. Good stuff. Big fan of Indian as well. No, I'm not talking Middle Eastern now. I'm moving over to India, but man, Some goat curry. Oh my gosh. The yellow goat, the yellow curry. Oh man. Delicious. Yeah. The world needs more curry. I don't know why it hasn't really. I mean, it's a little bit in the Western world, but you know, a lot of it is sort of hipstery and like pop, you know. But man, I love curry. That sounds like a great order. I'll take 2. Don't forget the garlic naan. Yeah, no, that's first thing I go for. I grab my naan, and then I order the goat and the chicken. But yeah. Sometimes, too, if one time I bumped into an Indian place. I was in Minneapolis that looked seriously legit. It was a very authentic experience with the food. And I didn't order. I asked them to make me their specialty. Just make me what you are known for. And it was quite a spread. Turmeric. Oof. There you go. That'll... Just don't get it on anything. It'll stain everything it touches for 10 feet. Turmeric is pretty intense. There you go. The garlic and cilantro. I just love it. Yeah, me too. I'm able to eat the cilantro. I don't have that vibe where it tastes like salt. You know, I know some people can't do anything related to the cilantro because of the, you know, it tastes like soap. Let's see, do Wiccans have anything like Thanksgiving? Interesting question. That's an interesting question. Yes, in fact. And, you know, I kind of touched it a little bit yesterday, so maybe we'll talk about it right now. You know, there's many ways to approach wisdom. And numerically, there's a lot of ways to approach wisdom, right? Like we talk about the 12 signs and the 22 letters, and there's all this numerology related to stuff. And, of course, witches know that one of their numbers is 8. 8 is a very important number to the Wiccans, you know. I've spoken about it with respect to the I Ching, the 8 elements being the 8 points of the cube. The Kabbalists, you know, use the 8 points of the cube to reference that idea. And I just so happen to have a very good resource. Which is by Janet and Stuart Farrar, that discusses the Sabbats, right? The 8-fold wheel of the year of the Wiccan system, at least Gardnerian witchcraft. And now, the difference between the 8-fold wheel and the 12-fold wheel can really, you can have a whole different conversation about how these overlap and how they, whatever the case. But what I've always said over and over is that each of these holidays have a story that they're telling, and that story is present everywhere. And very often, especially with the Wiccans as an example, is what you'll find is a very interesting kind of mashup with the intent of telling that story allegorically, right? And so they'll borrow from the Greeks, they'll borrow from the Romans, they'll borrow from the Egyptians, because the symbols are solid in that idea that they're trying to express. And so when we get toward this time of the year, there's a couple of holidays that are very important with respect to the energy that is changing from the bountiful year to the fall, where things begin to slow, and there's that last final kind of death throe of the heat, and then we move into the period of time of the dying god. And so we're before the dying god, right? We're after Samhain, and Samhain is the one that everybody knows as Halloween. And so there is a transitionary period as we move through these phases, very similar to the alchemical process, right? And so on the eightfold wheel of the year, I'm not prepared, unfortunately, to have it like visually in front of us here, but the eightfold wheel of the year, we're moving from the period of Samhain into the period of Yule. It's the period of the bounty and the storing for the coming time, the cutting of the wheat, the harvest, so that you can prepare for the dark time, for the dying god. You can be there to take him through that process with respect, and to make room for the birth of the new when we come into the next season, right? Okay, Llewellyn is a really Silver Raven Wolf. Scott Cunningham, Dorothy Mercer. I met Silver in '99 at a trade show. She is what a presence. I'm just going to use that word. You know, people who don't know, Silver Raven Wolf was the author of the '90s New Age movement with respect to the reinvigoration of the Cunningham magical system. In fact, I went to a museum in Cleveland and was able to see the notes that Cunningham used to write his book. His actual spiral notebook is in that museum. And it's I laid my eyes on that book. It was pretty neat. Amazing. She, like I said, she could just touch you from across the room with a look. She looked amazing. She had an amazing energy. She spoke with such a level of just honesty, very, very much more down to earth than I expected her to be. But that was my story I told about who she was before we met, right? That's right, yeah. Crowley Censor was there. Yeah, the Greenie Tarot from the Thoth. There was also some original art from Frida Harris on the wall, which is priceless, right? She's the painter, right? She's the one who made this deck actually happen. It's Frida Harris, and there's that original artwork there as well. They had a Golden Dawn robe. They had a Kibik box, which is it's an ancient sort of cursed thing. It was a lot of fun. It was really cool. What a place, man. The guy was shining mirrors in everyone's faces as a form of magic, and they didn't realize what he was doing. I did. It was cool. It was fun. Yeah, Frida. Yeah. She preferred to be called Lady. Lady Harris. I'm sure she was a lady when she chose to be. What she was a very powerful and dynamic personality. So you want to be called Lady? Yes, ma'am. She convinced Crowley to get off his ass and do something. That says a lot, right? That is not a joke. That's a big deal. I tell you what. But yeah, so that said, fun. The holidays are transitions through the year. And so if we consider a cross, and then we put in between that, almost like a compass, what the witches are referring to is the eightfold reflection, the eightfold perspective. And of course, standing in the middle of the wheel of the year and looking out, you can see it revolve around you and move through these phases. And the period of time that we're working on as far as Thanksgiving is the harvest of Samhain and the preparation for Yule. And this is that period of time of bounty, of Thanksgiving, of fertilization and recognition that the stuff that we now go down is going to go to sleep. And so we, because we did the right work, can know that when spring comes and it is time to be fertile, it will be ready. That we've done the work, and what was left behind during that ascension that we talk about, when the flame is gone and it gets cold, that what's left behind is going to be enough to bring forth that new life in the spring. And so the graciousness comes from the thankfulness of the things that were provided to us, but it's also the union of our correctness in our approach to it, right? The prudence. We did the pruning. We did the watering. And so we get to enjoy that bounty. And so that bounty is a union of our work and of the gifts that were given to us. And that union is what gives us that time to weather what we're about to experience, which is the dark times. Cold and alone in the dark. Right? The winter that's coming. It's okay. It might be cold, but we're not alone. And the dark is the only place that you can see the light without it being drowned out by everything else. And so look forward to the opportunity. That darkness is beautiful. That darkness is you. And not in some sad, depressing way. It's in the way of that. That's the place where when we don't decide to pretend to be something, that's what we are. We're the silence that words emerge from. We're the darkness that light peeks out from to show us beauty. It's not sad, it's empty. And so it is able to be filled up. It's like a blank slate. It's not dark, it's blank. It's not empty, it's wanting. Sure, same here. Same here. It can seem sad at times. You can read it as sadness, but it isn't. It's aloneness for a moment, right? It's aloneness. And of course, alone is impossible. We started the stream talking about that. You're never alone. You're surrounded by the Holy Spirit at all times. Another way to say that is that you're surrounded by yourself. You're inside of yourself. You are outside of yourself. You're never alone. You're always being spoken to. You're always listening. If you don't believe me, turn your ears off. Go ahead. Is there a such thing as a dark room? Go ahead and go into a dark room. You'll see brighter light in a dark space than you ever will in your life in sunlight. My gosh, it's right. Go into a dark room and it gets loud as like a jet engine with the noise in your mind. You can't quiet it. You can't turn it off. That's not what we're here to do. What we're here is to separate what it is we're seeing and find the beauty. Right? It's in limiting that we open up. Silence has a right to be heard. So I'm not sure, did that kind of, that was obviously a very quick explanation, Kitten, but did that cover or explain a little bit of the period of time that we're in with respect to the Wiccans? And I appreciate that. I think that I may want to actually discuss that at length, okay, and maybe read some, read from some things. I'm not perfectly prepared to jump in and like grab a chapter and go, so, but otherwise I would have that conversation right now. But I'm satisfied that I got out what I could to discuss really the period of time between Samhain and Yule and what's going on in there. Okay, but and we will get that as a subject this week actually because it is relevant, and so I think I may talk about that in the next day or so. That's a great idea. Me too. There's a couple of people that I haven't been able to reach out to and to kind of let them know that I'm back if they still want to participate. But I haven't really been able to get a hold of a couple of people. I really miss Shushu and Wendy and Luana. Brianna stopped in once or twice, and I missed her a lot too. I really did. And Missy, Vesta. The dude, I miss you, dude. So there's a lot of people. Same here, love. I mean it. I know people throw around stuff, but you know, I really do. I mean, let's see. I saw somewhere that the Pope decided to keep the old language on the shield in order to protect the original information. That reminded me of the Book of the Law and how not even a single... Interesting. There may be something to that. You know, I haven't really looked too much into Pope Leo. Obviously, for him to have been elevated to Pope, he certainly is within the doctrine of the Church, and they felt comfortable enough allowing him to be the mouthpiece. But I wonder if he did have some responsibility to the integrity of a certain doctrine. I'm going to have to look into that. The old language on the shield in order to protect the original information. Okay, we'll see. Because, yeah, the currently the stuff that's in the news, what happened today, was essentially he had used the Nicene Creed in a statement, and he omitted a certain doctrine, right? And now, interestingly, if you are saying that there's this idea that he, is in a position to make a change. That's right, Andrea. Well, Andrea popped in yesterday, right? I finally got to say hi to her. That he was responsible for making some decision related to that shield. We'll see. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at it. And yeah, that's it. This is all going to be unfolding over the next couple of days, too. So, as we see it all unfold, his comments, see if the cardinals and the bishops have anything to say, see what the religious right has to say, and then you can kind of get a vibe of motivations, you can get a vibe of agendas and narratives, and kind of we can, sit in the middle and look out and see what we can put together. So that's great. That's a good point, yeah. And we'll see what's going on with that shield. So yeah, Andrea popped in yesterday, wasn't it, I think? And that was nice. It's coming together. We'll see, slowly but surely. One thing I did do that might change things is I changed the name of the channel. So even if you were subscribed and you had the bell, when you get the notification, it's going to be notification of the voice and the light. Right? And if you're not familiar with that, it's going to be like, who's this? And unfortunately, the phone number I had tied to my account and stuff prior, it was a Google phone number. And I haven't used it in a little while, and so it deactivated the phone number, and so I can't answer any of my old text messages from people. And so I can't even just shoot them a quick text to say, hey, I'm decided to start up again, and if you want to join that process, then great. I can't get a hold of people, and so I'm hoping that they just come across it again at some point if it's right. And I'll keep digging and seeing different ways that I can get a hold of people that way. If you happen to bump anyone either during your streams, if you bump into anybody, you can let them know as well. And we can get together and do a collaboration when, we could have a nice little group reunion. That would really be something. I would really like that a lot. So, we're talking about a lot of esoteric subjects when you start getting into symbolism, because there's a lot of machinations in language over time that we are not aware of, that changes meaning, alters perception, becomes the basis for things we assume that we don't even know why we assume, but we do, and we don't realize that that's the source of, and then we speak in a way that makes it very clear that we have that ignorance to people who have the knowledge. Right? That's very common in Freemasonry, as an example. There's a lot of shop talk, and you can have a conversation with somebody who claims to be a Freemason and know in 5 minutes that they're faking. 30 seconds, 5 seconds, immediately, right? Or that they have a limited understanding of the subject because they still have that surface definition and haven't gone further to find where it all came from and understand the idiosyncrasy of the time, and there was something specific to a certain region or a certain event. And so we have to be careful. very, very rarely do I ever hear anyone speak about the Holy Spirit as a feminine. But you're telling me in the grand expanse of the universe, the only feminine that's mentioned of any kind of value to the New Testament are the Marys? There's no divine feminine in the Old Testament? Of course there is. It's the Holy Spirit. The breath of God. The mind that the original thought emerged in. The wind. The oxygen that the Yud uses to burn. The thing being spoken that looks like light, but it's really just the thing that light is carried on. Consciousness. The thing that awareness appears in. The empty vessel that gets filled with identity and stories, feelings, shapes. And we look inside of that and try to make sense of it, but we can't see it from the inside because we're in the outside looking in. And when we're looking at it from the inside, we can't see it from the outside. We're stuck inside looking out. But if we realize that we're actually the thing in the middle being seen from both sides, we're the thing in the middle. We get to see both perspectives, and so ours is actually a little more limiting in one sense and fuller in another. And so we have to parse that. We have to kind of make sense of that emotionally and mentally and physically and all these things. Oh yeah, no problem. Well, the community tab too. What I'll do is I'll also kind of put a thing up there and make sure it's all pointed back and forth also. There's some new stuff that they added for creators in the background as far as posting and some other things, community stuff, and so I have to kind of play with it all too and see how that works. I've just been so antsy to jump on that I kind of been neglecting the bells and whistles of the platform. But we'll see, it'll come together. And it's time. We'll figure out the music, and we'll figure out the glitchy camera, and we'll figure out the doodads for making sure that people are able to be heard if they want to have something to share. You know, that's how the community grows, is that we all support each other. We all let everyone know about each other. And when you find someone that's authentic, that you insist that they be seen, and somebody that, you know, is kind of on the verge and may not be saying or doing the right thing is welcome, so that we can all grow. Okay, good. Yeah, different mixes, I guess, are mixed with different volume levels, and it's not always easy to get it. So I tried to set it to a point where it wouldn't go past a certain high, but allow it to still be in the background. It's, you know, I haven't quite dialed it in yet. I'll get there. I'm not a pro, you know, we're just kind of doing this by the skin of our teeth and put it all together. I got 17 windows open trying to make this all happen. So one day I'll have a nice big budget, and we'll get a programmer to put together a thing, and we'll have a resource everyone can go to and have access to the tools real time with overlays and all that other stuff. It'll be neat, and have some interactivity and some other things so that you guys can get involved in the magical process and not just watch a demonstration. You know, the purpose of this learning is not to feed you with a bunch of information, but to get you to participate in the process so that information becomes active, utilized, right? It becomes a tool for you to use, not just witness others use. And so that's good. For instance, I made the step of putting out a lot of this stuff on the Discord so that anyone who wants to can download high-resolution versions of some of the tools that I use, and a good majority of which I've recreated on my own so that I have the rights to the imagery and that I don't have to worry about there being any kind of concerns about that. Everyone can use them, have no trouble with their takedowns or anything else. You don't have to reference it. You don't have to give any kind of attribution. Just use it to teach, use it to spread, use it to call me a fool, whatever you want to do. That's there. And as well, I'm going to be putting up some other files. I haven't figured out exactly how to do it yet. It's a different kind of file type. But some of the 3D stuff as well. Specifically in the Enochian, because again, it can be a very expensive endeavor. Trying to put together some of this stuff. And artistically, you may not have the chops, right, or the capacity through money to get all the parts or access to the books to get it accurate. We're going to provide all those tools to everybody. And so the Discord is going to be a place sort of like a repository for that information, so that when I speak about it on the stream, you can jump to the Discord and have access to the wheel locally if you want, and use it in your own work, right? That's the goal. Perfect. Also, you should be able to, and if you're not, I'm not sure why, but you should be able to post on my community tab if you want to, post on the tab that, whatever the case, looking forward to working together or doing it the stream together, whatever, just to kind of highlight that we're going to be getting on together and doing stuff. You're moving again? Oh yeah, you don't have time for that. I hate that when you have a landlord that doesn't care. Fuck, man, especially like winter's coming. That's when pipes burst. That's like, you got to maintain your building. Like if you're not interested in maintaining your building, it's not just an investment that you get to walk away from. It requires maintenance in order to maintain that income. You don't just get to buy a building and ignore the people that live there. $1,500 a month and he's not going to take care of the building? Yeah, forget it, buddy. No way. I've paid a third of that and had more care. Yeah, God bless. And what are you supposed to do? Rat him out and then the building gets shut down and everyone has to move? It's tough, right? It's not so easy to know what to do in a circumstance like that. And that's sadly a lot more common than you'd think. Your family's pissed. What are you supposed to do? Live in squalor because the landlord doesn't want to take care of the place that you're living? It's safety. You have to take care of yourself. What are you supposed to do? I can understand them having a reaction, but you have to kind of think about what it would be like to live in that circumstance. Now, if something tells you their heat's on, right? It's really easy for people who are sitting in the warm to complain that you shouldn't complain. Tell you what, buddy, turn off your heat, sit in the cold for a day, and then you'll wind up understanding why I want to leave. Oh, pissed at him. Oh, that's good. I was going to say, woof. Like, if they're worried about you moving, come on. It is. It's tough. And, it's not always easy to know how to react to that. Like, how do you go scorched earth and tell them you're going to take them to court, and you would probably win? But at the same time, again, what happens, they come down, they put a sticker on the door, and now you got to move out. And then, then it sits until some investor scoops it up, puts a couple dollars in to put it right back up to code at the minimum, and then starts robbing people again. I don't mean to be cynical about that, but I don't know. I haven't met many landlords that weren't really just shady people trying to profit off of people who have a little money. It's like most of them are just like supporting some kind of nonsense on the side, so that, and having someone else pay their bills of doing nothing. It's really gross. Because someone left them some money and they invested in real estate. That's disgusting. Investing in real estate is a euphemism for using people's desire to have a home as a means to control and make money. Invest in real estate. I don't know, I don't mean to sound angry about that, but you know, I've been there. I've been rich, I've been poor, I've known billionaires. That's not I'm not just throwing it out there, that's a true statement. All the way down to people who live on the street, eat 2 days a week. Right? We've all kind of seen the whole gamut. I'm not unique, but I'm just saying, you know, I've studied what I saw. I've seen people with money and how they treat the people underneath them. And I take that back. The people who have less money. And what are you going to do? Stay strong. Do your best to keep your mind and heart straight. Call yourself out when you catch yourself in bullshit. And hold people accountable that try to hurt you. Right? That doesn't seem like a bad way to live. In a perfect world, yes, that's the contractual obligation, right? That's the agreement. I give you money, you give me safe place to live. If you don't give me safe place to live, then maybe I don't give you money. You know, but then you run into some risks. There's certainly, you know, some cases that people have said, well, you know, there's a contractual obligation for them to provide a certain standard. And if they don't meet that standard, then they're breaching contract and you don't have to pay rent until they fix it. But now you want a lawyer to get involved in that. You don't want to be the one to take that step, right? You want the lawyer to be that. And you want there to be the record that you have been willing and have been paying your bills and were advised by an attorney that that's not the right thing, you know, and so during this period of litigation, there is a consideration for that until a decision's made. That can wind up blowing up in your face, though, right? So if the slumlord has friends in the right places, that's not going to end well for you. So again, it's not so easy on knowing how to deal with that. You know, imagine if we all had the correct thinking, and so that kind of behavior wasn't tolerated by the neighbors, wasn't tolerated by the city, wasn't tolerated by the county, wasn't tolerated by the province in your case, or, you know, it wasn't tolerated by the people. And so those slumlords would not be allowed to exist. That behavior would not be tolerated, and so that type of system wouldn't even be allowed to exist. But of course that's not the case because money makes a lot of people look the other way. And when we create an icon, an egregore, a symbol that gets carried over with density, about what we think that those people are, those people, then suddenly there's a separation that can allow to be take place where they're better and we're trying to do good by those people and we provide them with housing. No, you don't. You're printing money by watching the people who are in need do what they can. And if they were given the same opportunities as some of those other people who were born into money or you know, pretend that there's a level playing field, perhaps they'd be in the same position or better. You know, how many doctors live in a place that they're never even going to be able to go to college? How many people out there, men and women, that are a magus in waiting that will never have the opportunity to know that part of themselves? That's a real thing, right? That's a thing that happens all the time. It's no good. I'm opening up your picture now. Okay, yeah. Awesome. Cool. All right. Okay. Oh, affiliate channels. All right. Yeah. See, I'm gonna make a note of that, and we're gonna jump on that. All right. That's what I mean by, like, I don't know the little doodads yet. I'm gonna have to get into all the community stuff and make sure that we're supporting each other. Well, see, I agree. Hoarding of resources is a big problem, right? Isn't that the big problem? What, you got 10 people that control 99% of the wealth? Like, what, are you kidding me? That's, what? Wait, what? That doesn't compute. Like, what are you talking about? You will be alive for the first trillionaire. If there's one individual on the planet with $1 trillion, do you know what that does to the like? Hello, people. Like, I don't think you realize how big $1 trillion is. In fact, I know you don't, because you're a human brain. The human brain cannot touch $1 trillion. We don't know what that word means. Okay, let's just do one quick little exercise here, right? Let's look at 1 billion seconds. All right, how long is 1 billion seconds? Okay, 1 billion seconds is 31 years. Okay, just to be clear, I'm going to put this in the chat. 1 billion seconds equals 31 years. Okay? Nobody Google it. How long do you think 1 trillion seconds is? This is actually a stupid question. It's kind of like a trick question for kids, but because we know 1 trillion is 1,000 times 1 billion, right? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. 1 trillion years or 1 trillion seconds is 31,000 years. 31,000 years. So when you're talking about the fact, the difference between a billionaire and a trillionaire with respect to the percentage of wealth inequality, holy fucking screaming shit. Like, you cannot perceive $1 trillion. You don't know what that word means. 1 trillion seconds, 1 trillion anything, 1 trillion Planck lengths is still bigger than you can imagine. Like, enough. 1 trillion Planck lengths is actually smaller than you're thinking, but I'm not going to go there. Planck length is really small. A Planck length is way smaller than 1 trillion is big. But that said, just drop $1 million in all of their banks, right? Yeah, I don't even want to get into that. You take a trillionaire and you give $1 million to every American, that still doesn't touch your wealth. The idea is bonkers. There's 1,000 billions in 1 trillion. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's, and we're just, normalizing this number being thrown around. Yeah, we're getting a $10 trillion investment to the United States economy over the next decade. Okay. We're going to spend $1 trillion on AI over the next, but so on. Oh, okay. And where's that money coming from? Thin air? Okay, that's fine. That's where money comes from anyway, but really, so you're going to print $1 trillion out of thin air and then pass it around amongst each other. It's cool. Isn't that what you're all doing now? Nobody spends their own money. They just all spend each other's. It's fucking funny. And we all go, what just happened? I don't know, but we can make, really cool pictures on the internet now. We can type in Pikachu and, it'll look like my cousin. Like, I don't, Yeah, right. Drop $1 trillion in the food bank. How about we stop wasting food and just feed people with the shit we already grow? Are you kidding me? Stop planting, server farms and using up all the water to cool processors. I don't think people really fully realize the cost of AI. Every time one of our 17-year-old boys sitting there watching gamers uses AI to create a waifu picture that costs thousands of dollars in power and energy and training and It's ridiculous the amount of money it takes to create that little stupid image, and we use ChatGPT and Claude and these other programs to do such stupid nonsense, and the amount of waste is enormous. It's on a scale you cannot imagine. The oil companies talking about the inefficiency of burning fuel to as an energy source. The value we get from AI and the cost of it is so skewed, it's not even funny, and yet we're not really aware of that because we're just here, we plug in a thing, we get a picture, we don't realize what it takes to make that happen. It's destroying our planet like in a crazy way and not even funny. And wait till like really, has everyone noticed that suddenly we keep getting a bunch of brownouts and blackouts? You're going to start seeing those more because we're having power issues to run the data centers. You think I'm kidding? This isn't conspiracy nonsense, right? You know what kind of energy necessity these data centers draw? It's bonkers, the amount of power that they need, so that we can turn our profile pictures into Ghibli art. Like, come on, man. Forget about even making people lazy. I mean, it won't even matter because the stuff isn't even as sustainable. Like, lazy. It's making us psychotic. It's making us unable to communicate. Hang on, I gotta get a coffee. I need a sip of coffee here. Let me see if I can convince my producer to warm one up for me. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, that's it. And by whose instruction? It's gonna be neat to see it all play out. I'm not gonna speculate that there's some kind of cabal. It is undeniable, though, if you're in that place and you have the power now, you're going to do what you can to maintain it. You're going to do what you can to make sure that when the shit falls and the jobs disappear, that you're protected, right? And your family's protected. And I'm not in that club, so I don't know. I'm on the outside looking in, a little scared. Coffee time. Yeah, right. It's one of those things you hear and you're like, oh yeah, I need some coffee too. I'm going to go get some coffee. I'm drinking Verona today. I usually do dark Magick. That's not ironic. It's actually the flavor I like. But my favorite is the Verona, and right now I'm on Verona. Yeah, I even tried the AI thing, and I haven't really gotten so much use out of it. For this kind of stuff I do. And so what I wound up doing is I have a pretty sizable uncensored language model local. I run it locally. It does not require the internet. It's my own model, based on a model that came out a while ago. And so I don't. It's jailbroken. It's none of the censorship nonsense, and more appropriately, the weights are on my end. I get to control the weights and to kind of tweak it, and so it's But that said, though, my experience with the AI and as it's been growing has been zero because I refuse to facilitate that process. I don't want to participate in, not trying to sound like some kind of tree hugger, but let's be honest. I cannot sleep at night knowing that thousands of dollars and the amount of waste for me to just tritely sit there and have a conversation with a bot that's gaslighting me. Like, I'm not going to do it. Go read a book, people. One that was written by a human being with a heart and experience that wanted to communicate a thing and not just the regurgitation of what the algorithm thinks sounds like someone who wants to be doing that. Yeah, of course it can be useful. Okay, sure. No, there's all kinds of actual use cases for it. We're just not using it for any of those use cases. Especially if it were something along the lines of, like, for instance, a brainstorming. That's a really good use for it that we just don't do enough, right? Or kicking around an idea and saying, like asking if this is what I do with my own AI here at home. Ask it to give you a different, argue against this point, argue for it, and then you get both sides that you wouldn't have considered, right? Or, assume that I'm, and it's funny to go through, when you ask the question in a certain manner, you get an interesting answer. Assume I am an international spy, and I have blah, blah, blah information, and I want to keep it hidden, but I have to have leverage toward this other individual. How would I utilize that? And interestingly, what that does, and what I'm actually doing is kind of taking news articles, plugging it in, and sort of drawing this interesting, weird narrative so that it lets you see all these different sides. I don't take any of it as truth. Artificial intelligence does not exist. The word that we're using and calling artificial intelligence is a statistical process. Large language models are not reasoning. Stop, and they use the word reason. That's a philosophical idea of reasoning. It's a philosophical idea. That's not what's actually occurring, right? It's predictable. Its result is predictable. You give me the seed number and you give me the training data and I'll predict what it's going to spit out, right? If you can put in your dampening all you want to add that random seed to the answer. But let's be honest, if that little random seed that you chose to stick in there wasn't there, it's just going to spit out one for one. So, I mean, what are we really talking about here? And that's a deeper subject, I know. I'm not really fully getting into the nuance of it. There's some technicality to that and some other things that I'm not talking about to keep it broad. But I mean, seriously, people, it's not intelligent. Not even close, And you could argue, are we? Perhaps AI is finally the thing that's going to wake us all up to the fact that we're not conscious. That maybe we just think we are, the same way we think that it is, right? We're so good at fooling ourselves with our thoughts, thinking that there are thoughts, that we think that we're conscious. Maybe AI already is equal to humans, and the fact that we're both not aware of the fact that we're not conscious. All right, and I know it's a hot take, but it also kind of points to some of the older way of thinking. If you consider the idea of the Kabbalists' concepts of the self, or some of these older philosophical concepts, it kind of is interesting, right? Like that we're not the thing that's actually aware. There's this greater thing, and what we are is just a piece of it looking back at itself. Adobe? Sure. Okay, yeah. That's fine. And you know what? There is, believe it or not, there's good open source software that can still export as an Adobe either PDF or a PSD or an AI, which is Adobe Illustrator, an AI file. And so you can use those other tools to do your work and then export it, right? And one example would be GIMP. GIMP is free. Okay, and it's very close to Photoshop in its functionality. It's a little different how it, it's not one for one on the use. But it does all the same stuff, including some of the AI tools and everything else. It's all there. But so you could use that and then export as PDF from there, and it's completely 100% free. Tried what? You tried GIMP and you exported as a PDF, and it wouldn't accept it? Okay, cool. Oh, you did find a resource? Good. Because yeah, no, I gave Adobe money for a long time too. In fact, I use it right now. You're looking at it right now, and this is the one that you are looking at here. I use it to do my sigils. Right? And so if I'm drawing sigils in here, I'm using Photoshop. But this Photoshop is the last paid version. This is CS6, which I own outright, and they can't take from me, right? And so I still use this copy. That's the sigil for the first word of Genesis. It's Bereshit. Interestingly, it looks like the letter Bet, which is cool, which is the first letter at the same time. But that said, so this is Photoshop. But they They're not getting any more money from me because I own it. I don't need to pay them monthly for a piece of software that runs locally on my computer. It's not the Creative Cloud stuff before they went subscription. I bought the last version that was a non-subscription, and I've been using it since. If I need to use other tools, I use other programs. DaVinci's pretty good too for sound, color, and some other stuff. It's not really good as a Photoshop alternative, but it's good for other things. Blender is also free. Yeah. There's lots of good stuff. Pretty soon you're not going to own anything. Everything will be a monthly charge, and that'll be it. You won't own a car, you won't own a house, you won't own... Everything is going to be subscription. Right? As soon as you're born, they'll assign you a username, and they'll give you some starter bits, and you can start life on your gamified adventure. Right, that's our future. Welcome to the world. Here's your starter chest. Now go level up. Oh, did you not realize life is pay to win? You're fucked. I mean, that's, again, it's a very sort of cynical joke, but I think that there's some wisdom there that we can gain, right? We can all look at that, what I just said there, and in one sense see the anger of someone who recognizes the inequality of the world, and at the same time recognizes that there is, in a sense, an opportunity for all of us to get there to some degree. But nonetheless, there's some truth in the middle. Okay, so Tenemera, here's a great example. This piece of music that's playing right now is pretty banging. How's that feel to you? Are you okay? This is a good way to kind of gauge the sensation of the music with respect to the volume and the tone, the mood. Is it good, or is it competing, or is it giving you bad vibes? Or seems like so far I have gotten some feedback on the music, and it's all been pretty positive. I had a couple people say that they like the energy, the new music compared to the older, slower stuff. Some people just say they don't care, they like the music altogether. And I had one person say that it's really distracting and they wish I didn't have it at all. Staticky, okay. Yeah, it's a little, this particular piece is pretty dark. It's a particular dark EDM mix, and this particular album is Saturn, so it's meant to be a little of what's the word I'm looking for? Not disturbing, but disorienting. Yeah, no, it's meant to be industrial. Yeah, industrial does certainly have that vibe. But that's why, again, I'll be switching it up. Let's see if I can jump to something a little lighter. This is for you, Tenemera. Hopefully we can find a little peace for the remainder of the stream. What do you mean? You are all people. All of this is for you. You haven't realized that yet? The beginning, it was for you too. The music was like, so you're not just one person, you're all people. And the goal is to be comfortable. We can just all be open to what's out there, and if it's not something that we like, we can move on. You don't have to listen. all parts of us are going to poke all the time, and sometimes they deserve attention and sometimes it doesn't. It's like, hey, listen, I'm trying to be peaceful. You can bother me about all the bad stuff in the world later. For right now, let's actually just move to something a little more peaceful. Your astro weather forecast. As I've been talking about, we've recently left Sagittarius or Scorpio into Sagittarius. We've entered this new phase of mutable fire. The heat that allows for the transformation, the will behind the why, behind the want. Yeah. I have to say, when it comes on, it almost makes me want to slip into that smooth sounds of your soul singing to you all night long. Let's see what's on the end. I had it stacked up so that I can go through the wands. Oh, cool. Sagittarius. I don't know, I may actually just pick a stream and do it without music. And, you know, like kind of test it and see what happens. It comes down to the people that are here and how they feel about it. And I'm finding that 80% of my audience is on replay, right? Does not join live. So that said, it's difficult for me to get a vibe from the audience, right? Other than you or... and even Kitten, who's not able to hear it from the same perspective that you are, and so it's not necessarily accurate, right? It's not always easy for us to kind of dial that in, but that's not the goal. The goal is to make sure that you understand what I'm saying, that my voice is clear, and that you feel comfortable enough to ask the question and get it answered. And you know, that doesn't just mean a question for the cards. It may even be in your own life, like if you're learning to read, or you're, you know, just beginning to get involved in a certain magical system like Goetia, you know, or something even more complex, and you may just want some a clarification from somebody who is also studying. And so it is important that the voice kind of be the thing, because that's what this is, for you to be able to ask a question and get an answer, and for us to meet in the middle with understanding. Okay, sure. Sure. Okay. I know some of them actually do that on purpose. They're designed to do that, right? Like you put them around your neck and turn them outward and they become speakers. Or you can turn them inward and they become headphones. Bass boosted. Hey now. Now we're talking. Oh boy. So this was fun. It was a fun conversation. You know, it's one that I'm going to be bringing up a lot because I think it's most suited for a large group to have a good, solid discussion about these topics, and to have some people in the room that have a very good command of their modality, so that we can meet in the middle with different perspectives and kind of see where they gel, and you know, really get a solid sense of what we believe, at least an understanding where what we believe came from. Collective Ching, sure, we can do that. No problem. So not anything in particular? Like when you say collective, you mean like a general kind of group thing? We can do that. No problem, love. And, you know, I'm glad that you said something. I'll change the music anytime. If it's uncomfortable, then that's something to be, you know, looked at. Yeah, she's brought it up. This is twice in a row now, two streams in a row, and it is a great resource for kind of looking at some of these symbols that we use from a different side, and to kind of get their angle on these ideas of the elements and the ideas of different vibes bouncing off of each other, and energy moving from one state into another, and all that stuff. So let's just get it all. Put that in there. Alienate others how? So let me go ahead and grab that. First hexagram here. Just give me a moment. Unfortunately, it's difficult for me to see my screen the way I have my setup, and so this is such an easy process, and it's difficult for me to do the readings in person. I just figured out how I can kind of make this a little bit better on myself. The I Ching thing I kind of need to have set up beforehand, and so when a reading kind of comes randomly, it's not so easy for me to jump unless I'm ready to do that. But that doesn't mean I can't put it together. I have everything here accessible to me, and I can do that. I just need to find my... Let me just find my... here we go. Okay, all right. Okay, we got it. We're good. We got this. Oh, no, not at all. In fact, I love doing it. It's just, again, I wasn't prepared to do the I Ching tonight. I was kind of, but that's, so I have a cheat sheet that I can use here to see for myself while I have it on the screen for you guys. And so I'm going to do that. I'll pop this up for you. I will, and then do my stuff. We are looking at yang, yin, yang. Yin, yang, yang. Oh, interesting. Oh, look at that. Okay. Oh, that's a beautiful... Is that 63 or 64? 64. After crossing the water. Okay, let me just pop that in there really quickly. Sorry. And I have to shut off the one that's on now. Okay, and now I gotta jump over to this. Shut that off. Jump to 64. And we should have it all there. Okay. Is that the correct? Did I get that right? Yes, I did. Okay, and now number 3 is the changing line, so we'll get to that in a sec. Okay, so sorry that took me a sec. Okay, I am now ready. So what I've done here, I took them, laid them out, and just shuffled and put these out to draw the hexagram from the bottom up. And the third line is the changing line. And this is a very beautiful kind of vibe here, because what we have is the... Let me jump here to show you guys. The lower trigram is water, and the upper trigram is fire. Okay, and so we have fire descending, water ascending, and then we meet in the middle. And that meeting in the middle... If I can get this to, there we go, it's right here, the 64th hexagram. Okay, and so that's how we derive that. And now let's look at the meaning of that. Okay, and now how this works is that top area there has a little poem, This is the sun of moon, which is a beautiful statement if you consider what Sagittarius is the path in between the sun and the moon in the Kabbalistic system. Let's pull my tree up here and illustrate that. Okay, this is the sun and moon on the tree of life, and that space in between, that path, all right, is Sagittarius. Okay, that's the period of time that we're in right now, and that path is Sagittarius. And that connects the sun and the moon. And so when you know, this is a relevant topic. And then there's a little piece of poetry underneath that, and then underneath that, here's that small piece of poetry. And underneath that are these 6 lines. Each one of these lines correspond to one of the lines on this hexagram. And the one that we're going to be paying attention to is this one, which is the changing line, which is going to be this 3rd line right here. So, starting at the top, and this is a general reading for anyone who's listening to it, whether it's live or on replay. This is not a prediction or a reading, more appropriately something to perhaps put into your mind and consider. Work ruined. There's a very specific energy there, right? Like, oof. So nearly crossed the stream. Steps slacky once, and all is lost. We're gonna speak about that with respect to the Eastern interpretation and how that got evolved by Crowley into this statement here. But then we move to the changing line. This is the message for everybody. War, patient through persistent periods. If it seems like things are not changing, be patient. They always do. And so your war is to be patient through persistent periods. Periods where you think things aren't changing and they're not getting any better. And right, this is a state. This work ruined. So nearly crossed the stream. Step slackly once and all is lost. It's the idea of, man, we were so close and then we took one wrong decision and we slipped again. And sometimes it can seem that way, and sometimes it is that way. And in this case, what we're being reminded is that we need to be patient when that seems to be the case. It seems like no matter how hard I try, I can't make a change. No. You just haven't gotten to the period of time where that change will happen. You're just working through the time until the thing that you are bringing about takes place. You can't expect it to happen overnight. So if it takes 10 days to happen and you're on day 8, man, it seems like, man, I've been waiting 8 days. I've been working 8 days for the same thing to happen. Then you wake up on day 9 and you're like, oh, I guess it's not going to happen. I guess I should just stop. I guess nothing is going to change. Right? And so day 9 is the hardest. Because you don't even believe in day 10. It's not even a thing in your mind. You don't realize you're on day 9. You think you're just on day 1,000 and it just hasn't worked. But no. You're almost there. Just take a breath. Relax. Be patient. Be authentic. Be yourself. And most important, be aware of the fact that we're not always fully able to know where we are in the process. Are we about to get it? Is it really far out and we need some learning? Doesn't matter. If you keep going, you'll find out. And most importantly, the wheel always turns. The wheel never stops. If you're at the top, you won't be for long. And if you're at the bottom, there's nowhere to go but up. No matter which way that wheel turns, if you're on the bottom, you're going up. And so it's okay. And so no matter where you find yourself, don't get too comfortable. And the lesson there is that patience will give you the power to see that change happen. You will watch it occur because you have been there. And now we can see this here evolve. That's the whole purpose of the changing line, is to kind of see how this situation evolves. And so what we do is we take our bottom trigram, or in this case the bottom one, and we flip that over, and it's going to change the hexagram, right? It becomes a different hexagram. And so now let's find the new hexagram, which we don't have on the bottom any longer, water. Instead, we have wind. Wind. Under fire. Which is beautiful, because that's the whole crux of the conversation we were having today, right? Everything we've been talking about is the wind of the mind and the Holy Spirit. Turn on number 50. And shut off number 64. Okay, great. And so what we've done, again, just to be clear, there's a change in that line. So now that we've changed that line, it turned into a yang. It went from masculine or feminine to masculine, and it changed the structure of the hexagram, showing us the new path, right? And so that changing line, we went from 64, and now we're going to be moving into number 50. And so this is how this is going to evolve. Will our patience pay off? Will we have to keep waiting? Are we in the first hour or the 9th hour? Cauldron. Firm its auspices, we may guess. Realization, progress, and success. Okay. We don't read the changing lines on the second part because that's a totally different reading, and if we wanted to, we could get into that further, but this is very much talking about the idea of Sagittarius. And why I say that so confidently is because the imagery of Sagittarius is very clear to us. The imagery of Sagittarius is this alchemical process taking place. And the cauldron that is referred to in that process is a very misunderstood symbol until it's pointed out, and then it becomes very obvious. And so let me just get this going. Okay, this is the art or temperance card, art, in the Filioque system for Sagittarius, right? And now what this is the cauldron where the work gets done. This alchemical process that we're talking about of combining, of unifying the sun and the moon as a single being. Right? Yeah, and it's kind of hard to misinterpret in the way that it's put together. The I Ching is in an interesting way rigid, which helps us to navigate the symbolism. And so, you know, it's not just trite that I say that this is referring to that process. It's actually very appropriate considering where we came from, which is water and fire, water rising and fire descending into each other. And here we get the cauldron firm, its auspices we may guess, realization, progress, and success. Right? And so each one of these is interesting, right? We can guess, which means we're on the outside looking in. Realize, which is that we are now understanding what's taking place and we're a part of that process. Progress, which is the act of the work being completed, i.e. that the change is taking place, the heat is being applied, the pressure is building. And then success, which is the goal of that burst, where the emergence of the new thing is born. And what's not necessary is left behind in order to fuel the next exchange. And so the general reading is telling us that, you know, although it seems like there's a period that we're going through right now that seems to be unchanging, or that we don't really have a lot of power in changing, the real fight right now is patience. In the recognition that change is guaranteed, just not necessarily when. And so if we are patient, we will be in the position to receive that when it comes. Okay? You know, it's funny, like in business, that happens a lot. Like, times are tough, sales are down, we need to cut advertising. And then another company says, times are tough, sales are down, we better start spending more money on advertising. And so while the competition stopped spending money because sales are down, the other company continued to advertise while sales were down. And so when the economy picked up and people were spending more, they were there because they continued to advertise, and they were able to pick up that business that their competition couldn't, because they got impatient, they got scared, right? Sometimes you just have to stay the course to weather the storm. And what a beautiful message. Everything is okay. Right where you are is okay. Things are going to move around you. Things are going to move inside you. But you are unchanging. You're the same you've always been. Let the world around us spin. It's going to, with or without us. Yeah, you buy on the way down. It's dollar cost averaging, right? I had a buddy who used to work for Bear Stearns, who knows a little thing or two about that. You out there, Giuseppe? I haven't stopped thinking about you, brother. Yeah, he knows a little bit of thing or two about dollar cost averaging. For those in the audience, basically you buy $100 worth of stock. The stock drops to 50. You buy more shares at 50, so now your cost basis is 0.75 instead of $1. And so when it goes back up to $1, you've made money even though you're at a spot that's at the same point as your entry. And so it seems like you've grown. And there's a lot of shenanigans that takes place in that process. I'm not even going to get into the whole sell of what you're supposed to do to get people to buy on that on the way down. It's really gross and disgusting and dishonest. But yeah. You don't sell on a low market. That's true. That's definitely true. It's the ones that start buying up like crazy that you got to wonder if they're the ones that drove it low to begin with so they can buy in at a lower rate. You know, and just improve their position. Anyway, though, what do I know? I don't know nothing about finance. That's all nonsense. I just made all that shit up. Anyway, so end of the day, Bear Stearns, who's that? I never heard of that company. Was that something to do with astrology? Bears and start what? Like, is he an angry bear? Why is he stern? No, seriously. Yeah, you'd be surprised. There's some shenanigans, and I'll tell you what. When it comes to the magical process, the magic of the math, there's a lot of people that share and understand this knowledge in that space that don't ever talk about it. They understand. They know what I'm talking about, and they utilize it for self-benefit. Is there anything wrong with that? I don't know. I don't personally make that choice, right? I don't choose to use magic in order to build wealth, in order to manipulate markets or whatever the case. That's all just the machinations of a temporary system that satisfies the current need of humanity, and it will go away. This won't. But yeah. Yeah, if you want to invest in something, invest in the people around you, invest in yourself, invest in your community, right? That's it. And what I mean by investing in the community, that goes both ways, people, all right? Be open to receiving also, and give to your community, and make sure the community builds with the knowledge that we are responsible for each other. So we need to give and receive. We need to give with the expectation that we receive back. And not in the same way. This is not a one-for-one transactional thing. It's what we're capable of. If you can bake the cake, bake the cake. If you can't, but you can tell a good joke during the toast, you're just as valuable as the one who baked it. Because you're participating in the joy, right? That's it. And that's what we have to do. I'm very sad that I haven't had the money to buy one of your decks yet. You know, MPC unfortunately is very expensive, and I know you're trying to keep it as low as you can. But it's the only reason I haven't been able to kind of pull the trigger on that, is that they're pretty pricey, and you know, one day I'll be able to do that. I'll finally have a shark deck on my desk after 4 years, right? 4 years. Wow. It's going to be 4 years since we met. This little clutch. Is that crazy? Yeah, I don't even want to say that word. It just will hurt my ass even beginning to discuss that. That whole conversation, I don't even want to get into. That's the mystic magical math that I can't even get into that. I'm not even going to say the word. That big ugly T word that you just dropped in the chat. That is the most nonsense insanely evil machination. I understand its value from a geopolitical perspective, and it's a tool for negotiating and whatever the case. But just I can't. I'm not. Nope. Stop me. I am doing my really hardest not to bring this into any kind of like us or them, left or right type of conversation. But man, once you get into certain subjects, it's hard not to. They're not necessarily polarizing. It's just, there's the obvious data, and then there's the people who choose to ignore that and weaponize that, and you kind of have, sometimes you need to stay out of that conversation. I don't know. Do your best at least, right? Yeah, I remember that. Love him or hate him, your ex, what's his name, prime minister or whatever, he was a smart guy, man. I don't care if you liked him or didn't like him. We had some disagreements. I didn't agree with 100% of his approach. I'm talking about, what's his name, the good-looking kid that used to be your prime minister before Trump kicked him out. What's his name? Trudeau. He seemed very smart, and he seemed, I did also get an agenda vibe from the guy, like an inauthenticity, which is sad because I knew he had the capacity for authenticity. Right? And that was fun watching those two kind of go at it for a minute. Trudeau and Trump, because man, Trudeau is not someone you want to have an intellectual battle with when you're Donald Trump. That guy will fucking eat your lunch. Trudeau had was prepared for that conversation, right? And he also had a sharp wit, like he knew when to use it and how. He's a smart guy. Funny stuff. And he wore Star Wars socks, man. That's my kind of guy. Yeah, Justin Trudeau. I remember that. That was an interesting little coup that went on there, right? That was an interesting little move. That was an interesting little power play to get him out of there by the other side. It worked. It was funny watching it happen too. I knew exactly how it was going down. I saw it happen. You build this thing, and then you build this anti thing, and you got the two groups, and then you force the one group to just completely triple down on something that's a little bit kind of crazy, and then you make that thing so crazy that they have to admit that they're not what's necessary anymore. It's really a concerted effort that was executed perfectly, and it completely worked, and everyone got wrapped up in it, including him. Well, a lot of them were, sure, and a lot of them also got caught, after the fact, having to backpedal on that, right? And that never looks good. It's like, so yeah, I appreciate your stance on racism, but I gotta ask you about this photograph of you in blackface with a watermelon in your hand. Yeah, so about that. And then them having to admit to that, that, isn't it funny? I've seen a lot of people have to backpedal on that could pretend to be this kind of oh, we're for equality. Just don't look into my past. I didn't always believe that, apparently, right? And so I hear you. I wonder, too, how much of that is belief and how much of that is wanting to join a club. How sad. You know, what percentage of racism is people who just perpetuate hate so they can belong? That's even worse. Oof. Fools. We're all the same. Who are you kidding? You know what color I am? Michael. You know how tall I am? I'm 1 Michael tall. 5 foot, blah, 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 inches, blah, 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 pounds. You know how much I weigh? I weigh 1 Michael. I am 1 Michael in weight. My mass is 1 Michael. And there's no difference between you and me from that respect. Like, you know, come on. It's true. You know, that's not philosophical ramblings. Prove me wrong. The fact that I'm 5 foot 7 inches is by virtue of that you and I are agreeing on some standard of what a foot and an inch is. I am, in fact, 1 Michael tall. Right? So, you know, why should I agree upon your standard? What's an inch? Some made-up shit based on the length of a king's arm, right? Like a yard used to be the length from the tip of the nose to the tip of the finger of a king when his arm was outstretched. So how long is a yard? Well, I guess it depends upon who the king was. And so we finally had to agree upon that, right? And we have the metric system, which is based on an actual standard of the distance between the center of a hydrogen atom and the orbit of its electron, so to speak. Right? That length is a very specific length. And that length is the basis for the meter. That's observed natural occurrence, right? That's not, you know, it's too bad your king's got a small dick, and so we got to rework all the ropes. Everything got shorter. Ridiculous. I don't know. There's someone in our country that wants to be king that has a small dick. Alrighty. I got a little off the rails there for a minute. Oh, God. Someone put something interesting in the chat for us to talk about. Could just pop up another random card and kind of go from there. I mean, you know, that's one of the beauties of this language. Small dick is a sign of a cursed bloodline. I've been avoiding that one on my YouTube channel. Whoa. Man, you're going to piss off some brothers with that kind of language. That is some, that's a scary statement. I don't even know how to, what now? Okay, let's see. Okay, can we just have an adult conversation real quick about your definition of small? Like, what does that mean? Now, what I'm getting at is that, like, at what point does that take place? Like, let's say, let me put it to you this way. If you're like an average guy with a white boy sixer, are you okay and you're not a cursed bloodline? Like, are you talking about, like, mushroom cap dude? Are you talking about thin but long? Like, what is that? Because that's a very, and it's also a very personal decision, right? It's a personal opinion about what that means. I usually take the tantric approach of the animals. The rabbit, the horse, the bull, the deer, right? And the different, what that means. Like, you know, how to match up a rabbit man with a horse woman, or a horse man with a, you know, so on. And so, and with that, and those, but that's interesting what you're saying here. That's, and again, you know, the statement, I just have to say, I'm going to put it out there, the statement is so ridiculous, right? The first time you hear somebody just come out with that statement, and it's like, what did this crazy bitch just say? Small dick is a sign of a cursed bloodline. Take a breath, And let's actually look at what that might mean symbolically, and there may be something there. Or it may just be like a different way of saying a truth that... Because are you implying that therefore the larger the penis, the more pure the bloodline? Because that's some dark Aryan bullshit. And I think we just need to say it right now. And, you know, like, if we're being honest, guys have seen dicks in our lives, right? And the bottom line is that I don't think it really has anything to do with the quality of the person. I know guys that are hung like crazy that are certainly not enlightened beings, and, you know, I've seen guys that really you feel bad for them, and their shit is totally together. It's the same with small dick. Oh my god, what are you doing right now? That's unfortunate because my tits are tiny. Don't be hating on the itty bitty titty committee. I don't know. I have to kind of take a different opinion on that necessarily. I don't know. Maybe I just haven't had the experience of looking at it from that perspective, but I don't think that the accident of our forms in this world goes to that level. Like, you know, I think, and I guess let me put it to you this way. I think the thing that sort of set off my confusion here is the word cursed bloodline. I think that that's an important term that needs to be removed from any intelligent conversation. Because what does that mean? We're all mixed up. There's not a person with anything. Like, if you want to talk about what does a pure bloodline even mean? Inbreeding? Right? What does that mean? Because if you want to get technical, then Iceland. Iceland has the purest bloodline on the planet. Iceland has the least tainted genetic pool of the Caucasian world. Right? And so, but anyone out there that's done any genetic testing and looked at their blood stuff and whatever, and there's like, again, what you are, what race are you? You're a Tanamera. What are you talking about? Like, I got a little bit of Polish, a little bit of Russian, a little bit of Italian. Well, actually, a fair bit of Italian. It's about 3/4 if you mix it all up, but sort of half. It's a little bit over half. You know, it depends upon how you do the math. Both my parents were half Italian. By blood, and but there's other mixture in there, right? So, but what am I? You know, what does that mean? That my bloodline is pure or cursed, and one way of determining that is the size of my penis? Well, then that's cool. I mean, if there's a chart, I'd like to know where I fall. I mean, I know I'm not cursed, but I know I'm not divine either. You know, I'm one of those, you know, Goldilocks dicks. So I wonder, you know, am I allowed to go around proud that I'm the chosen one, or should I keep my head low because I'm some kind of tainted blood? Yeah, I don't know. That's a kind of a little weird direction that chat went there, but I don't know. That's a conversation that would have to kind of really go in a few directions to get. Well, that's cool. That's just it. Sometimes you got to speak it out loud to say, wait a minute, what did I just say? Let's actually review what I said. All right, a corrupt bloodline. Like, that's one example of a corrupt bloodline would be constant inbreeding, to the point that the babies are born in such a way that they can't lead a good life because your selfishness in keeping that bloodline pure caused a circumstance that allows for there to be suffering. God loves diversity. You know, yeah, no, I know, and we're playing anyway. It's all just words that we assign meaning to, and in most cases, we're actually speaking about a higher level subject than we even think, right? We can't even really grasp what it is that we're trying to talk about. And so we try to pull words that point to it. And then those words get skewed by modern interpretations and modern understandings and modern sensibilities. And we ignore the sensibilities of the periods of time that this stuff came from, right? Or just aren't familiar with it. And so we don't consider that. But, you know, it's at our core, regardless of all this talk and nonsense, in our hearts we know that we're all the same. And in our hearts we know that we all just want to belong. We all just want to be left alone. We all just want to be safe. And so, yeah. End of the day, though. We have to be careful whenever we assign meaning to anyone. Right? That's the same way that Hitler got a nation worth of people to view a certain other people as literal rodent. How black Americans were treated in our country for a very long time. How a good portion of people in the Western world feel right now, just based on who they choose to love, how they choose to express themselves outwardly. Nobody knows what's going on inside of anybody. It's not our choice to decide how they express themselves outwardly, and yet we not just label it, we take that label and we put it on a scale, and we put it above or below things, and we judge and separate based on danger. Careful. Anyone out there in the belief that they're any better than anybody else, my phone number's on the top. Call that number and let's have a conversation, and I'll give you the opportunity to convince me, but I promise you're not going to win that conversation. There it is. That phone number works. And I'll put you on live and we can have a talk. Anyone out there? Right? So, no one's better than anybody. Shaq is better at dunking a basketball because he's 3 feet taller than me. He can't outrun me. Even with his legs being longer, I promise he can't. Unless he's in his car and then I'm fucked. But then I can get in my car. Well, his car's bigger. He's got billions. Maybe I'm better at driving. You never know. You know, it depends. How do you judge the bird and the fish? Are you going to judge the bird based on its ability to swim? The fish will beat him every time. You're going to judge the fish on his ability to fly? The bird will beat him every time. Or you can just stand on the shore and talk and tell the bird how beautiful her feathers are and tell the fish how beautiful his colors are. And you can go sleep in your tree and he can sleep in his little cave in the water, and then you can meet during the day at the shore. You don't have to pretend to be a fish. You don't have to pretend to be a bird. You don't have to pretend that fish are bad. You rule the air and enjoy the air. You rule the water, enjoy the water. Share with the world what that means. That's what we're here to do. Not judge the people on the other side. Welcome them in. Mm-hmm. So you've been going here about 3.5 hours. That's not bad. Had some opportunity for some people to pop in and chat. Doesn't seem like anyone has taken that opportunity, but it's there nonetheless. I mean, I don't know, maybe I should change my thumbnail. Like I said, I've been noticing a lot of views on the replay. And so I'm wondering if I should format it differently so that there's more content for people that are watching after the live stream. But I do kind of front load it with the stuff, right? Usually the banter and the readings are later in the stream, and so I do front load it with information. And so hopefully the people who are catching this after the fact got some good stuff and piqued some curiosity that led you to want to go study a little bit more and maybe answer some questions that you didn't know you had. And so that's the goal here, right? That's what we're trying to do a little bit, I guess. Sure. Well, yeah, when I go live at midnight, it's 9 p.m. on the West Coast. Right. And so that's when I started streaming that, was I noticed that I got a lot of traffic when I started streaming at night, because I started to catch the West Coast people that are kind of just wrapping up and getting online. And, you know, then you get the overnighters on the East Coast like myself, kind of my kind of people who are still up at 2 o'clock in the morning and want to talk. And, you know, there's always also the late night crisis. There's a lot of mental illness in the world, and there's people out there seeking, and a lot of times those people don't really go looking until it's 3 o'clock in the morning. And so, you know, when you're someone like me that wants to be a resource to those people, being there helps. Yeah, the sun babies. The day woke up. The daywalkers are my friends. They're welcome here too. I did some morning streams. You know, it's funny. One of the reasons I stopped doing morning streams is that I didn't want to compete with people who I think are doing a better thing in the morning. Once I have my act together here on a good morning show, like considering how I'll do the astro weather forecast on a daily basis with signs or something, maybe do sign readings first thing in the morning, you know, something along those lines, and have like some kind of message for the day that will get people going in a positive way. You know, to then reinforce the stream later. There's a lot of different ideas to kick around, and unfortunately I'm kind of limited in when I can stream, and so I don't just have the flexibility to jump on whenever I want, which is sort of stymied me in my creative process. It's like, all right, I'll just do what I know I can in the meantime, right? But I really think I do need to be thinking a little more forward on that. And preparing that to allow it to come to fruition rather than sort of wait for it to happen. So, you know, once I'm done with this first week and it's in the can and I've gotten more into a flow of the stream here, then I can work on making it beautiful. Yeah, right, exactly. Not everyone's so good in the morning. Well, I have a very strange schedule of sleep. And so I'm awake in the morning and in the late evenings. It's a small little chunk during the day that is when I find my sleep. I used to sleep from 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then, you know, I'd be awake otherwise. And that kind of shifted a little bit. Like 2 to 7, 2 to 8, 2 p.m. to 6 or 7 p.m. And then I'm awake otherwise, right? And so I could do a morning show. I just want it to be valuable. I don't want it to just be, you know, let's pop on and catch eyeballs for no reason. You know, I sort of want to have something to contribute, or I feel inauthentic. And, you know, mornings I think would be a little bit different, right? Mornings would be actually more talk, because I imagine there'd be people kind of having me on in the background. And so it would be the idea of me finding a good subject, and, you know, and keeping it engaging and keeping the conversation going. It's not a bad time to have interviews and that type of thing, right? Because a lot of the world is awake and doing their thing, and that's when you're going to get the authors that are plugging their books, the artist who, you know, has their deck they're putting out, you know, an occultist with some new concept that they want to bring to the world, and whatever the case may be. So, yeah. Let's see, I sleep in the morning. Winding down, I don't have to set schedule, though I randomize it to confuse my gang. That's sure. Right? Yeah, isn't that how the serial killer finds their prey? Right? They're always looking for people with a pattern or whatever the case. Switch it up on them, right? That's funny. You definitely have been through stuff. You know, it's you can tell that the way you act, react, the language that you choose, the things that form your decisions seem to all be around protecting yourself. You are in a constant state of protecting yourself, which is not a bad thing. That's not a judgment to you. It's just you reveal subconsciously to the world that you're somebody who has been through the necessity to protect themselves, and they are not gonna, not on my watch, right? It's not gonna happen again. First time your fault, second time my fault, and that ain't gonna happen. And that's sort of your attitude. I see that, which isn't bad. Having someone like you on my side, I don't want you on the other side. Didn't you post that recently? Like you're the chick you want to fight with, not against? Shit, yeah. When it's time to throw down, I got two people I'm calling. I'm calling Bree, and I'm calling T. Those two bitches will lay some smackdown. Let me tell you what. Bree's gonna bring some LA, and T's gonna bring the wrath of fucking goddess. And while you two are kicking ass, Kitten's gonna be in the back, plotting the torture after, wondering how she can make it slow and last. You know how cats play with their food? Don't misinterpret little Miss Kitten as a little fluffy, cute little being. She could be a lioness when she wants to, and she loves to play with her food. That said, though, we don't have to even go there. We can protect ourselves by being conscious of who we let in and out of our lives. The amount of meaning that we give to the things that we know are actually meaningless and are just there to distract us, to insist on the correct nourishment for our mind, body, soul, for our community. And none of that is even allowed. Justin Bieber. That's right. That's right. Back in the day when they were locking people up in Abu Ghraib, they were blasting those poor people with Justin Bieber as a form of torture. Baby, 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 no. I wonder how he felt about that. That had to have been a very fucking weird thing to hear as an artist, right? Like, you can love him or hate him, but like, he's making music and putting himself out there and doing his thing, and you know, and then he finds out that, you know, yeah, you won a Grammy. Oh, and by the way, the CIA is using your music to torture people. Wait, what? Yeah, we're using it to torture terrorists in order to get them to talk. It's like, oh shit. Mariah Carey Christmas. Oh, wow, I haven't thought about that in 25 years. Yeah, I remember that. You couldn't avoid it, right? Are they still singing All I Want for Christmas Is You? I don't know. I haven't listened to the radio in too long, and so I'm kind of out of the zeitgeist. Is that song still in the zeitgeist? I guess it was a cute song. I don't know. You give me John Lennon any day. That's my Christmas song. Same here. I haven't watched television in a very, 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 very long time. I do consume visual media, no doubt. I mean, I watch stuff on YouTube, and I do have my favorites, Firefly and some other stuff that I watch and go back to. But yeah, I haven't really watched force-fed, agenda-based media in quite a while. ICP. They did a Christmas album? Fucking blasphemy. I love it. That shit's great. Are they still a thing? I bumped into a juggalo recently. That's funny. I guess that's still a thing, right? His face was painted, the whole bit, man. He was funny. I guess they're still going. Cool. That's cool. You can tell all your friends and family it wasn't a phase, right? You still paint your face. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't followed any of that nonsense for a long time, man. Whatever. It's cool. When music turns into a movement, I check out. I'm out. I don't want to have anything to do with any kind of movement. If the beat's good and it carries me to a place, that's cool. But the minute you use it as a tool to talk about some mess, I don't care what side you're on. That has nothing to do with their opinion or whatever. People that are talking one way or the other. It's as soon as it becomes a message, I kind of check out of your art because it's no longer art, right? It's propaganda at that point. Some people can argue all music is propaganda because you're trying to sell your own self, and that might be true. But you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Once that music crosses the line and you're telling someone else's story through your music to use your vehicle to make them stronger, everybody gets weaker. The music is not the same. It's evil. It turns into a drug designed to manipulate as opposed to a vehicle for carrying emotion through time and space. The authenticity's gone. Might as well just have an AI write it. Put together the patterns of how people are going to react and get them to feel the thing you want without having to spend the shame of knowing that you, as an artist, have chosen that route instead of honesty in your message. And so the people who are buying your shit, they're not buying you. They're buying the same message that the people who write your checks want everyone else to say. And so, are you an artist or a puppet? Right? And there's people out there that are able to transcend that and stay on the outside and kind of even work within it and give us the truth sort of hidden. And of course, those with the ears to hear can hear the truth anywhere. We can kind of see through the agenda. But that's a lot of work. And so typically if I find that they're starting to get a little kind of messagey and they're, careful. Don't go there. Don't. Just let's agree on the music. Forget about who you voted for. Forget about what you believe. I believe I love your music. You believe that you have a message to tell people in that music, and let that be the thing, man. Forget about your message. Who the fuck are you? Who's qualified to share that with anybody? It's funny, like Asmongold. I mean, here's a dude who spent 15 years playing video games on the internet, and suddenly we're supposed to pay attention to his opinion? Like he's got some kind of insight that we don't? No, he's a dude in his room playing video games. Relax, people. I mean, come on. Or like, even commentators. Yeah, you can listen to what they have to say, but I mean, like, you also have to then, pass it through your own filter, right? Pass it through your own beliefs and morals and go, okay, how do I feel about that? Instead of just joining a club to go, yeah, bro, here's some bits. I'm part of the club too. Crazy. We put so much stock in people, because they, oh, he's a really good singer, so I'm going to pay attention to his political message. What? I promise you he don't care. He's trying to sell records and go home and do a lot of really good drugs. Like, what are you talking? Like, you don't give a shit about what you think about his message. Anyway, it's enough ranting. Well, yeah, that's true. in one sense, but certainly you can't deny if you have a platform and you're calling for certain things, then that platform is going to cause people to act in a certain way. Then you have a responsibility to be careful, right? Like, you can't just say to your audience, yeah, we should go fuck up that person. That's illegal for a reason. Because people are stupid enough, like I said, they care way too much about what a YouTuber has to say. People care way too much what a musician has to say. And here's a guy in a bad mood that talks about some nonsense, and suddenly you have an army of people that hate somebody they've never met. They have no opinion on that person. They just heard they're supposed to hate them. And no, see, that's what I want to avoid. We should talk, take a breath, find out where that comes from. What is this hate really all about? They're probably both mistaken. Right? The FBI does not get to gatekeep. No, they don't. The FBI is actually dysfunctional at this point. So, but the FBI does not. No, they don't. But what they do have the right to do, at least what we here in America have given them the power to do, is to identify and recognize and protect us from danger. Now, again, politics gets involved in that, right? And so one side will say they're terrorists and the other side will say they're patriots. Now, they're both wrong. They're not terrorists. They're not patriots. They're businessmen who print money by selling music to people. End of story. If they put on a show in a costume and they tell the world all their stuff and you agree with their stuff, then great. But these are business people making money selling music. Right? We don't live in their houses. We don't know what their actual beliefs are. We don't know how they treat their dog. We don't know how they treat their wife. We don't know how they treat themselves. It's all a show. We have to be honest about that. How many of us defended Michael Jackson? Right? How many people still defend Michael Jackson? How many people still defend Donald Trump when it's clear as crystal? Right? How many people still defend Bill Clinton? How many, come on. So let's be real. We don't know who these people are. Oh, listen, no, Britney's different. You leave her alone. You know what the funny thing about Britney is that there's a little, I sometimes I kind of wonder, there seems to kind of be like she finally at some point understood, when she went on that psycho break and shaved her head and all that shit, and people were saying, oh, well, no, she's doing drugs and trying to pass a drug test, and so she shaved her head to avoid all that blah, 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 blah. Something tells me that there was a certain point with Britney where, she got it. Not that she sort of didn't before, but I think she really understood the where she lives. What is the industry, who she's surrounded by, and so she kind of changed her tune a little bit, right? And she kind of took a little bit more agency, and that's when it looked like from the outside now, she kind of got attacked by the people who were trying to print money off of her that couldn't anymore, or, whatever, and she had this moment of, none of us can understand what it's like to be celebrity and go through that level of pressure. Not to mention that she might actually be batshit crazy. I've never met her. I can't speak to that. But what I will say is I've never met her. I don't know what her actual beliefs are. I don't know ICP what their actual beliefs are. I know what their agenda is based on their music if I tried to parse that, but that's even incorrect. Who even knows? Who knows? Doesn't matter. Does the beat get you? If you're going to get wrapped up in their stuff, that's cool, but, is it clever lyrics? Does it, or is it just designed to get us all angry at each other and separate and all that shit? It's up to you to see it for what it is, which is a piece of music. And if you use it as a way to, as a dog whistle, then there's a problem, right? That's all. Alrighty, I'm thinking of wrapping it up here. This has been really cool. I think I got some of the stuff out that I wanted, again, to sort of tease out what's actually going on with this decision that got made by the Pope to make this sort of big change to the Filioque. Filioque. And the sun has been removed from the Nicene Creed. Ooh, what does it mean? Right? I think we talked about that, and the Holy Spirit, and this idea of the trying to kind of hold back that feminine energy from the conversation, and what it all means. Filioque. And as we move through the period of Sagittarius, I'm going to each day talk a little bit about that wand energy as we move into the 8, 9, and 10, and we move out of that fire into that earthy, and what all that mean. What do these words all mean? And so we'll continue to explore that journey through the period of Sagittarius, moving into Capricorn. And when we move into the 9 and then into the 10, we'll talk about those transitions and what this period means and the opportunity for growth and how we can use it in our lives. And in the meantime, if anyone would like any further information on how to read these cards, how to use these tools, you can catch me on the Discord, catch me live once a night when we're on here, or use that phone number up on top of the screen, the website at voiceandlight.com. There's a lot of ways to reach out. Don't be afraid. I don't charge 90% of the time, and when I do, it'll be really clear in what it's for, but don't even worry about that. Okay? And thank you so much. Thank you, Tenamara. Same. And so, guys, have a great evening, and remember what this is really all about. Remember what's actually happening right now. And, of course, remember I love you always.